Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
This is one of the best senior moments I've ever heard. Thank you, Helen. There were protesters at the grocery store handing out pamphlets on the evils of America. I politely declined to take one. There was an elderly woman behind me, and a young 20-ish female protester offered her a pamphlet, which she politely declined. The young protester put her hand on the old woman's shoulder as a gesture of friendship, and in a very soft voice, the young lady said, "Lady, don't you care about the children of Iraq?" The old woman looked up at her and said, "Honey, my father died in France during World War II. I lost my husband in Korea and a son in Vietnam. All three died so a twit like you could have the right to stand here and badmouth our country. If you touch me again, I'll stick this umbrella where the sun doesn't shine and I'll open it." I love senior citizens. Good morning. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a patriot without an umbrella. Oh my goodness sakes, good morning on a Tuesday, and yours truly having a hard time trying to get the wheels to turn. Good morning, I'm Zeb Bell, and we're on Zeb at the Ranch. I think I gotta pinch myself. And we're brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 great locations, along with some of our great advertisers, which include Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley, and our friends at Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today, 734-6969. And now, without further ado, here's the lovely, absolutely creative genius of Gina Jameson.
You know, I love Helen because that made me giggle.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff that Helen sends me, and boy, it raises your eyebrows up a little bit.
Well, you know, I kind of started the day and walked into the studio not in the best of moods. I mean, I'm cranky, and so that just put a smile on my face, so thank you, Helen.
It did me too, and knowing Helen like we all do, and there's times that we don't know Helen at all, like we supposed to, I guess.
Exactly, yes.
She is quite a gal.
Yes, she is.
And one never knows at Lunch Bunch, really, what is going to come rolling off her tongue.
No, she definitely keeps us on our toes, both in person and on the air.
Dal looks like, her husband looks like sometimes that he's running in the woods, hiding behind trees because he doesn't know which way to go.
Exactly. Dal, we're here for you, man. We're here for you. Anytime.
Therapy.
That's right. Therapy.
Oh, goodness. Do we have a pledger?
You know, I'm going to tag Michael on with the pledge and the weather.
All right. Michael, the pledge, please, and then I'll break in before you do the weather. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Michael Rogers. And, of course, now Michael, being on the air with the Pledge, is going to stay right with us because we've got the best weather forecast, the best weatherman in the industry right here with us, brought to you by Rock Creek Growers on the corner of Maxine Lane and Irene Streets in Kimberly. Number to call, 423-6800. They've got all those ceramic pots in various colors, sizes, shapes, and textures. They've got all your shrubs, all your trees, everything. They've got information for you on how to take care of your garden and everything and all the heat in the summer. Wow, they do it all for you at Rock Creek Growers on the corner of Maxine Lane and Irene Streets in Kimberly, 423-6800. Here now, the number one weatherman in the world, Michael Rogers Weather.
Morning, everybody. You know what? It's been kind of like, just normal summer, dog days of summer, and pretty soon we're getting ready to walk into a thunderstorm. That's going to be making its way towards Thursday. Otherwise, more of the same as far as our weather, where it's going to be sunny. It's going to be hot, but for a high today at 92. And the overnight low at around the low to mid 60s. Other than that, get some weather action as we work our way towards Thursday, and then we've got a nice weekend in store for us. So other than that, enjoy the day and enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
I love that tagline, and MichaelRogersWeather.com. Michael, thank you very much, and brought to you by our friends at Rock Creek Growers on the corner of Maxine Lane and Irene Streets in Kimberly. Thank you so much. Gina, I got a quick question for you. Did you ever catch that television advertisement that is for a website, a dating website for farmers? It's called Farmers, let's see, I got to get this right here. Hold on.
FarmersDating.com?
Yes, FarmersDating.com or something like that, yeah. I find that to be, or FarmersOnly.com, that's what it is.
Okay, yeah.
I find that to be one of the most offensive ads I've ever seen on television in my life. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to take it a step where I'm going to get involved and send them a nasty, very nasty letter saying that it's demeaning and it's dumb to portray farmers and ag people in general like they are Neanderthal hicks on that ad. It's absolutely repulsive.
Yeah, I think it is too. And honestly, and this is what I'm confused about, not to kind of like veer off the topic, but stay on topic. Online dating, really, whatever happened to good old-fashioned meeting somebody face-to-face?
You know, you just touched on it because I was going to bring that up, too. Last night, I was watching O'Reilly and then some of Hannity and some other cable shows, and I'll bet you there were at least 8 different of these websites to where you can meet your dream queen or whatever it might be on one of these sites and live happily ever after and never have an argument, never have a spat, never have to put the toilet seat down. I mean, this is ridiculous, and I find these very offensive.
Well, I don't understand. Well, I do, but I don't. I realize that it's hard to get out there and meet people and everything, but you don't need to stereotype, and I'm just kind of I've never understood the online dating thing. I like to meet somebody in person, whether it be at a grocery store, walking in the park, at a concert, something. You know, I just don't get the online dating.
Well, and this FarmersOnly.com, I mean, they've got 3 guys that are actors in this commercial that are absolutely stupid. They act like they never made it past Ned and the First Grade Reader. They act like they have never been off the farm. They act like I said, Neanderthal hicks. And that is not the epitome and the portrayal of agriculture. Most all the ag people I know are extremely smart, extremely professional, extremely well-versed in English language and also their profession, and to have something like this portray agriculture, I find it offensive.
Well, can I play the audio of the commercial? I actually found it on YouTube.
Yeah, you know, and then we'll let the audience judge because I think it's absolutely the worst ad on television today. Go ahead.
Okay, and I don't know what this says, so hopefully it doesn't say anything bad.
Okay.
Really lonely and out walking the cornfield again.
Do you think they will ever find us true love?
Not hanging out with us all day.
We used to be lonely.
Until we met on Farmers Only.
FarmersOnly.com is the new online dating site for farmers, ranchers, and good old country folks.
You don't have to be lonely at FarmersOnly.com.
City folks just don't get it.
Okay, and to preface that, the first of the little bit of audio that was talking, that was the horses, the dog, and the cows.
Yeah, and then there's the other one that has three guys standing around looking at a picture of a girl, okay?
I haven't seen that.
And the one guy says, Yup, that's my date for tonight, boys. I found her on farmersonly.com. And then he takes off, and then the other two are standing there hulking their shoulders over. It's just repulsive, and I find very demeaning.
I think I found that other one.
Okay, go ahead.
No, wait, no, it's the same one. It's the horse, so never mind.
Okay. But anyhow, you have to have the IQ of a hockey puck to like that kind of an advertisement.
That's total stereotyping of an industry and of agriculture. Not what?
Yeah, and I found the commercial, with the actors were very, very poor, and the epitome of just really downgrading a segment of our society that works 24/7, 365 in feeding the world, and you have to know all about the different calibrations of fertilizer and how to make the applications and what to do, when to do it, everything else, and to look at an ad like that and demean farmers and agriculture in general. Personally, I think every farmer should write into the television networks and say, pull that ad on farmersonly.com. It is absolutely a low-class ad.
And way to degrade, because you know what, you can get master's degrees and bachelor's degrees in agriculture and farming. It takes a lot of time, effort, and brain power. And I thought that was totally demeaning and way to stereotype. Okay,
there you go. Hey, we got to do some ads and then we'll come back. I want to talk about that Muslim million-person march on 9/11. Oh, brother. Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. They're open at 7:30 in the morning. Throw the doors open. And I want to give you a little preview here. And Gina, this is for your information also. We are going to be over at Ramsey's on Wednesday, September 11th for 9/11 for a very special Patriots Day and Salute to Farmers Day, as we do every year. And it's going to be ripping huge this year. I'm going to tell you folks, it's going to be so special. We're actually going to start, I'm going to be on the air at 8, but all the activity is going to start at about 7 in the morning, and I'll tell you more as we go along. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. With all your electrical needs, they've been in business over 57 years, providing warm winters and cool summers. Stop in and see them today at Ramsey Heating and Electric, serving you. Also, real fast, I want to tell you that Valley White Home and Ranch, if you haven't been in there, they have remodeled, and man alive, they've just got room for so much more. They've got a fishing and camping and hunting section in there that is absolutely outstanding. Now, if you like to fish, and I love to fish, I just haven't had the time this year, they've got all the rods and reels and the fishing lures and all the hunting and camping equipment, everything right there for you at Valley White Home and Ranch. And don't forget, too, they've got all your feed needs. They've got everything as far as your clothing needs for your work or getting dressed up and going to town. They've got it for you at Valley White Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. You stop in and see these great folks today. Really, really nice people. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. If you didn't hear me yesterday, I want to reiterate this story again today because I find this subject to be one that really gets my engine going. And that is the deal about the Muslims in this country trying to say that they are being portrayed in a villainistic attitude or they are the victims since and on 9/11. And I find this so offensive. I find this so offensive that some of these people would get on the airwaves like the absolute dolt that was on television last night on, was it Hannity? I think it was Hannity, yes. And promote the Million Muslim March on 9/11. Oh, because we need pity, we need sympathy because we're victimized. Well, you deserve it. There. I'll come right out and say it. And so did Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. Now, if you don't know who he is a Muslim. He's a doctor that we've had on our program. He's been many times on Hannity, many times on O'Reilly, many times on Laura Ingraham, and he's going to be back on this program next week if we get everything set up with his schedule. And he absolutely is appalled that Muslims would absolutely be playing the sympathy card. And oh, well, we really have been victimized. Why, we this and we that. No, he doesn't feel sorry for Muslims at all, because he said, quite frankly, they have stirred up the trouble, stirred up the base, and stirred up the mess themselves. And last night there was a good verbal argument regarding Dr. Zuhdi Jasser and this other gentleman. His name, I think, was Phillips. And it just absolutely showed that there are very decent, God-fearing, American, flag-waving Muslims. But then we have the other side that are trying to act like they're victims, trying to act like everybody's trying to villainize them, trying to act like, oh, well, you know, we might come out and say something about jihad. We might come out and say something about this with the Muslim Brotherhood or anything, but we are lovable. And this last night just opened my eyes even further, that this Million Muslim March is nothing more than about hatred. Hatred against the infidels. Hatred against us. Calls, welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't forget, come on, give me a call. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Oh, by the way, this week, and it's going on full swing right now. As a matter of fact, this is their first big day. The Box Elder County Fair and Golden Spike Rodeo, and the theme, Blue Jeans and Country Dreams. Country Dreams? Country Dreams. And all of this down in Tremont, Utah, at the Box Elder County Fair and Pro Rodeo. Don't forget, tonight they've got the great big team branding. They get team branders from all over the Northwest to come into this thing, and a kids' calf scramble, and tomorrow night is the Bulls, Broncs, and Barrels, and then, of course, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, the great big, huge, with the big screen and everything, Golden Spike Rodeo. It is going to be ripping good. Box Elder County Fair and Golden Spike Rodeo, Blue Jeans and Country Dreams in Tremont, Utah. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. You know, I read a lot of different articles and opinions on this Muslim March, but, you know, the bottom line of it is that's September 11th, a day that we memorialize the death of 3,000 people in the Twin Towers. And it was an attack on our country. And it seems to me like they're smeared it in our face and rubbing it in, saying we're victorious over you. And that's exactly how it feels.
You know, I think that you've said it very well, rubbing it in our face, and basically with an kind of an attitude or an action of, yeah, we were victorious, nah, that kind of thing. I really am offended by this 911 march. I was very offended about having the mosque right down there at Ground Zero. I've been very offended about a lot of things that have taken place, but this Million Muslim March is nothing more to me than just a thumb in the eye of the rest of America on a day that should be held sacred for over 3,000 Americans that lost their lives jumping out of a burning building or buildings and being lost and crushed to death in the rubble because of Muslim terrorism.
Yeah, and for the people of that city and the city fathers to allow them to go in and do that, I'm sorry, they're not Americans. They're stupid.
Let me throw something else at you, my dear lady. Did you hear about a Kansas school in the heartland of America, a Kansas school that is teaching the 5 pillars of Islam in the school system? And at the same time, I was scratching my head when I listened to this story, and I said, wait a minute. We can't pray to God. We can't even mention God. We can't have a Bible in the school. We can't do anything, but the Muslims have infiltrated a school in Kansas so that they're teaching the 5 pillars of Islam. What kind of insanity is this?
Well, unless I've got it wrong, it seems to me like they're establishing a religion. And yeah, you're absolutely right. And I don't know why parents aren't just screaming like crazy.
They should be.
Pulling their kids out left and right. I mean, if I had a kid in school right now and that thing started, and I definitely pray that people that have children in public schools, no matter where they are, they better be paying attention to what they're teaching them. Because if you don't, they're gonna steal their minds and hearts, and it'll be over.
Well, let me throw one more at you this morning, my dear lady. In Georgia, it was found out in a school in Georgia that they were promoting a play called The Crucible. And they put up posters all over the school that said, God is dead, Satan is alive. What kind of an anti-God message is that in the schools when they can't even mention God or pray, but they can go and denounce God, demean God, and any other Christian and say, God is dead and Satan is alive?
Well, it seems to me that Satan's taking the schools over, if you want my honest opinion.
Amen.
We better take it back.
Yeah, amen. God bless you for your call. Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful day.
I tell you, people, I'm outraged. I am outraged over this, and boy, I would hate to be a school principal. I would hate to be a school superintendent. I would hate to be a teacher in this area that would do something like that, because I will go to every length I could, legally, to have that teacher, that superintendent, or that principal drilled completely out of the state of Idaho.
It would never happen in our state.
I'm not so sure, Gina. No, I argue with you very, very vociferously over that. And I'll tell you where it's going to happen first. It's going to happen in, pardon me?
Coeur d'Alene?
No.
Boise?
No, it's going to happen in Ada County. That is becoming a very, very bastion of liberalism, and I am absolutely afraid that it's going to happen up there.
I might have to disagree with you on that. I honestly don't think that it would happen here in Idaho, but I could be naive in saying that. But then again, I also send my son to a private Christian school, and I do not adhere to the practices of our public school system. And so maybe I'm a little bit different on that.
Well, I'm not saying you're different or wrong or naive or anything else, and you certainly have a right to your opinion on this subject. But when you look at Georgia, okay, in the heart of the Bible Belt, and you look at Kansas in the middle section of our great United States, and you hear these things, then you've got to ask yourself one question. Why couldn't it happen here?
No, this is the first thing that pops into my mind. Do these parents really know what the school system is teaching the students? And if they do, why are they not saying something, and why are they not just up in arms?
No, see, now there's the whole key to unlock the problem and lay it on the table and get rid of it, is parental involvement. Yeah. I'm beginning to wonder if parents are taking the time, or if they're even bothering to try to find the time to find out what their kids are learning, what they're being taught. Look at the sex classes in the high school and the grade school. Look at the attitude that's been pervaded upon these students as far as they're having to accept an immorality that most parents in my age and even after my age have said that it's wrong. It shouldn't be taught in the schools. But parents are letting this happen because they're not going to the parent-teachers meetings, they're not going to the school board meetings, and they're not looking them in the eye and saying enough is enough.
Well, and that's where the parents have to take that proactive step to know what classes are available for your child to take, and what classes you will allow your child to take. If there is some type of class out there that you do not agree with morally, 1, pull your child out of that class. 2, let the school board know about it. And 3, if you have to, pull your child out of the school and send them somewhere else.
There you go. And I want to talk a little bit more about this play. I got to ask the caller, if you would, please, their indulgence and patience while I do the Travelube and Capital Press. Would you, please?
You betcha.
I appreciate it. Don't forget Travelube Supply, 1050 West, 203 South of Heyburn, right there on Jim McCall's farm at 438-8730. They've got all the grease gun supplies, and they got the Lincoln cordless grease guns. Boy, you can have fun with those. Just kidding. And the window wash for the trucks at Harvest, and the Bubba ropes. They got all your Bubba ropes. You better stop over and check it out. And they can clean your air filters and save you money. Travelube Supply, 1050 West, 203 South of Heyburn, 438-8730. Caller will be right with you, but first of all, we've got Capital Press Ag Minute brought to you by Pacific Steel and Recycling. Great people. 320 West Main and Burley, 678-2321. Go ahead, please.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly.
Washington businesses are invited to participate in an upcoming visit with prospective buyers from Asia and Mexico. The Washington State Department of Agriculture will sponsor meetings September 9th and 10th in Seattle. Julie Johnson, Export Development Lead at WSDA's International Marketing Program, said 35 companies are signed up so far. Among them, producers of wine, frozen berries, honey, applesauce, chocolate, and oil. There is no cost to participate in the event, which is funded by a federal grant from the U.S. Small Business Administration. WSCA works with Washington State Department of Commerce to implement the grant. WSCA's foreign-based trade specialists are interviewing and selecting up to 20 buyers who will travel from Japan, China, Korea, and Mexico to meet with firms wanting to export.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and CapitalPress.com.
Don't forget that at Pacific Steel and Recycling, 320 West Main in Burley, they will help you, as a matter of fact. They offer a wide variety of bins and dumpsters, and if that's not enough, they have the right equipment and trained employees to help you load and haul your scrap metal away for you. And you know what the cost of the service is? It's free. These are wonderful people at Pacific Steel and Recycling, 320 West Main in Burley, 678-2321. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. It's me checking in.
It's me getting nervous.
Really raised my house. Down in Utah, in the first grade, they are going to teach the first half of the class, or the first half of the day, either French, Spanish, or Chinese.
Okay, that's in first grade, you said?
In the first grade. That little child is so excited. He says, "I can call you, Grandma. I'm speaking French."
And what did Grandma say?
What do they need French for? What do they need Chinese for? What do they need Spanish for?
You know,
we live in English-speaking country.
I will say this, okay, and I'm certainly not playing devil's advocate with you, Helen. I'm just being trying to be open-minded on this. I took other languages in college and also in high school. I took Latin in high school, which was really kind of a waste of time because it's a dead language. And I did take a little bit of Spanish in college, very little bit, because I left the class. But I don't think it's ill to find out and learn about another language because, like Spanish, comes in handy here for me to communicate with certain people, but I will never advocate that our roots belong with English. Our schools should have as a basic foundation English only, and I'm an advocate that that is the primary language for all countries. Look at the airline pilots. They all have to learn English, and so I'm an advocate of English only in our schools, but taking languages as a kind of a subsidiary language course for possibly your own usage later on in life.
But in the first grade?
No.
I could see it in high school. I have no problem with that. Or junior high. First grade?
You know, my initial thought, Helen, and let's see if yours jives with mine, we are seeing so much of a globalization attitude in the world today, primarily pushed upon us here in this country. That offends me that they would have a globalization attitude in the first grade. Pardon?
My grandson's bus is here.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, Helen, keep sending the interesting stories, and interesting is the key word. God bless you. Thank you.
I felt like you hung me out to dry this morning.
Well, you dried very nicely.
Okay. Have a good day.
Have a good day. I love that lady. I just love that lady. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Yeah, I find so much ambiguity in the attitude of, you got 3 or 4 students, let's say, in the school in Georgia that want to get together, and they're talking about a prayer vigil for a friend that might have been in an accident. Oh, you can't do that. Why? You can't discuss God. You can't discuss prayer in the school. You can't do that. But then, at that same school, they are promoting a play called The Crucible. And they put up posters all over the school that say blatantly, God is dead, Satan is alive. Another attack on Christianity, our belief system, and our morality system. You can go and say anything, do anything, put up anything, whatever you want for an anti-God environment, but yet the wholesomeness of standing and possibly praying for a friend would be absolutely indefensible, and they would be admonished for that. That is pathetic. And then a Kansas school Kansas, in the heartland of America, teaching the 5 pillars of Islam, and at the same time, if someone would walk in that school and say, we're going to teach a proverb, a chapter of Proverbs, one for every day of the month, they won't allow something like that. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. And then you may be naive enough to think that we're not being taken over, that we're not losing our value system, we're not losing our morality, we're not losing our Christianity as a Christian nation. And don't call me and tell me that we're not a Christian nation. I'm not buying into that very secularist attitude. Won't buy it. You'd waste your time on the call if you try to tell me that. There's prayers in Congress, prayers at the Supreme Court. There's prayers all over our bastions of government. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, I was calling. I wanted to say I totally agree with you that we need to be keeping God in school. It's very sad that he's not. My daughter does an online academy, and we've noticed the last 2 years that we are having more and more Muslim folk tales. Even in her German class, she had to, and one of her questions was, how many Muslims are in the country of Austria? And it was just, it's just horrible.
Let me ask you something. As a parent, pardon my rudeness for interrupting, but you just triggered a question for me. Do you think that this is a very sly but very subtle means of acceptance and basically taking on their philosophy into our government, into our schools, into our lifestyles, in a subtle way of basically also taking us over?
Yes, it's like brainwashing almost. You bring it in very quietly to make them accept it, maybe even become a part of it. Islam is not a religion of peace at all. And that's how all these little folk tales and these stories, my daughter's in the 5th grade, and that's what it tries to make it out to be, and that's not what it is.
You would think, now let me ask you this, as a mom, I want your opinion on this. You would think that most mothers would sit down and talk to their daughters about Islam and what it does and how it treats women in general and really put forth the negativity. Would you not?
You would think, but what I am finding out more and more, like with other kids my daughter's age, is that these parents are just uninformed.
Okay, stop right there because you're making an excellent point. How? I don't mean to be rude, but what age bracket are you in as a parent?
Okay, I'm 35 and my daughter is 10.
Okay, so you're 35. And pardon my rudeness on that, but this brings up an interesting point. You're 35, you're basically in the same age bracket as my son and daughter. And why are parents naive? Why are they accepting this kind of trash, which it is, into our school systems? Why are they letting this happen to infiltrate our society?
You know, I don't think they pay attention to what their children are being taught in school. I think kids go to school, they do their work, they come home, they sit at the table, they do their homework, they don't ask for help, mom's doing something else, dad's outside, and I don't think anybody is paying attention.
But have we lost our value system? I mean, to the point where, at your age bracket as a parent, do you care about all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into giving you and everyone else a country that we could be proud of, that was number one in the world with their attitude of helping other people, and that we stand for something? We would stand for something and help others. Is that attitude gone? People don't care anymore?
I just had this conversation the other day with a friend of mine. There has to be a superpower in this world. And wouldn't you rather it be America to be the superpower versus Egypt or China being the superpower? And wouldn't you be proud of that, to have these freedoms? And I think people just are so lazy. They are so accustomed to not having to do anything, not having to worry about anything, that they don't take anything serious anymore. They don't pay attention to anything.
Are you saying that we're...
That's when I hear comments like, Well, I just don't want to listen to all that because it just upsets me.
Yeah.
I don't listen to anything.
It's kind of the ostrich with its head in the sand type thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And what really bothers me is that you take someone like yourself, you had the backbone to call and vocalize exactly what you think the problem is, but now when you're talking about your friends and neighbors, I don't want to talk about that, no, I don't want to watch the news, why, just the same old stuff every day. People are just tuning things out, and then we're accepting all the negativity that's coming down the pike, like possibly Obamacare and everything else that's going to diminish, demean, and destroy the values of America. I just can't understand why people aren't involved.
I don't think they think things will really happen. I think they're so accustomed to the way things have been that they don't think it will ever change. They think America's too big, too powerful to ever change. And until things disappear, they won't take it seriously. They won't get educated. They won't speak up. They won't pull their kids out of school and do something different. They won't until something happens, until the government pulls out money out of their checking account to pay for Obamacare, and then they realize, the government now has, real-time access to my checking account.
All I can say is, and I mean this to you and your husband and your family, God's blessings. Please stay on the tightrope of morality and what's right, because we need people like you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
God bless you. Thank you. How can people not care? Deanne and I sit and we watch the news, and I take notes every night on what's going on in the news with all the different stories, etc. And it blows my mind, and we'll sit there and we'll just start shaking our heads as to how, and be offended by this if you will, how dumb we are as a nation. How accepting we are of second, third, fourth, and fifth place now as compared to what we used to accept as only a first place, very competitive attitude to stay in first place. I just don't understand why parents haven't taken more responsibility for their kids, more responsibility for their communities, and more responsibility for the politics that's governing in the communities. I just don't understand. Caller, I'll be right with you. Stand by. Don't forget JB's 136 East 5th North in Burley, the home of Zeb's Lunch Bunch. And our next lunch bunch will be next Thursday, the 29th. And we want to thank Walmart and Smith's Food King for the gift cards that we're going to be giving away as door prizes at our next lunch bunch at JB's in Burley. Absolutely phenomenal food, great specials, and of course the service is fantastic. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you stop into JB's and see Daniel and the crew. They are always serving you. JB's in Burley. You stop in and enjoy a delicious meal today. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
I have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old boys, and I was talking to them. We're coming home one night and going down the road and listening to the radio, and they're talking about Obamacare. And I explained to my kids that life is going to change as they know it when they're my age, to the point of where it won't even be like it is now unless they do something about it. And, they're kind of young and they didn't quite understand, and I did my best to explain to them that, you got to work for what you get, and that's just the way life is. It's fair. And, it's only fair for you to get what you work for.
Yeah.
And in school, they said, well, there is no, you don't win, you don't lose, you just get a reward for showing up. And I explained to them that if you made $100 and I made $1, and they're going to take your $100 and switch it around, so I get 49 of your $100, and you only end up with 50 of your $100. Now, how does that work?
Yeah, and Riley, in accordance with what you're talking about right there, I think it falls right into another category of people want big things given to them, i.e., let's say somebody that works in a hamburger stand. And they're hired because it's a minimal wage job. It's a kind of a part-time work job for them. But yet all of a sudden they want $15 an hour to flip a burger, and they're going to run that hamburger stand and that owner out of business. This is ludicrous. You know, that takes away the incentive to try to do something more in life. It takes away the incentive to go to school and learn something to be something that will achieve something. And I'm adamant, and I'm going to stand up and fight against this in the state, the nation, everywhere. I'm adamant that we need to have a stepstone system in this country to where you start, you work your way up to a higher level, you work your way up to a higher level than that through education, and not just be given everything.
And that's what I'm trying to explain to my kids and trying to point out to them, that when you grow up and you get a job, you get what you earn. And that's the way to be. Not sit around on your couch and go to the government and say, gimme, 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 gimme. Because when you do that, somebody's paying for that money. The government's giving you.
Absolutely.
It'll most likely be me. And I flat told them before that if you think that you're going to sit around and get nothing, I'm going to put my foot somewhere where you won't like it.
Riley, I tell you what, you're a good dad. Thank you for your comments this morning. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I got to go, so I'll talk to you later.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Time for a weather update with MichaelRogersWeather.com, brought to you this hour by Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls, with my buddy Reese Widmeyer. You tell old Reese we're talking about him. And, of course, at Sportsman's Warehouse, they've got all the hunting, fishing, camping, backpacking, shooting, everything, quality gear, the right equipment for you. The great indoors for those who love the great outdoors at Sportsman's Warehouse in Twin Falls. Here now is Michael Rogers Weather.
Hey, everybody. Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. No change as far as the weather for today and tomorrow. But you can kind of circle for Thursday. First time we're going to see a bona fide thunderstorm in the forecast. Otherwise, sunny and hot today, 92 for the high. 66 for the overnight low, more the same for tomorrow. And then we'll get some rain action when we get to Thursday. So enjoy the weather. It is the only weather you've got.
All right, Michael, thank you. Brought to you by Sportsman's Warehouse, 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls. And I'll tell you, they've got the quality gear, the right equipment for you, the outdoorsman. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, do you ever pay any attention to Duck Dynasty?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, thanks to my dear friend Jimmy Flowers, I have become hooked on Duck Dynasty, and it has totally destroyed my waking moments in the early evening hours.
Well, I'm always looking for signs of hope that the American people are realizing that things are slipping, and so when Duck Dynasty has become such a big hit, and I was in a big retail store the other day, and there was a cutout board of Willie standing there, I thought, well, that's interesting. But you see, they close every, show with a prayer.
Yes.
And there's never any foul language, and they're not depraved, materialistic losers. And so people can make fun of them all they want, but the fact that it's a big hit it seems like a good thing.
Well, stop right there, though, Randy. Your point is very well taken. Number one, they're entrepreneurs. The dad, Philip, was absolutely an outstanding football player and had a chance to go pro with many, many teams, and he decided to go back to Louisiana, go back to Miss K, and go back to making duck calls, and the business took off and just absolutely flourished. They have a very strong family value system. They have a very strong work ethic. They have a very strong Christian belief. What can be wrong with that kind of an attitude? Because it shows success in America.
Well, yeah, it's a good sign. Just like the lady was so right about, the one that had her child in the online school, and she says people just don't think it'll ever happen to us. And I tell you what, man, it's happening under your nose, people. They're in your house, whether or not it's through the media or otherwise. It's liquid. Like one of my friends said, it's liquid. He says it's already seeped into your house, and you're sitting around it all the time, and you don't even care because you're just so immune. We are just unaware. It's just like if my child, who's in high school, is acting differently, every time she comes home and she's been out or went with somebody somewhere, I monitor her attitude. Now, how hard is it to care about what your children are doing? You know, as your children grow up, they're always your children, and they bring their problems home if things get rough enough.
That's right.
They get divorced and things are rough, and they say they come to your door with their child in hand and one next to them, and I don't know where else to go. Well, see, they're always your children. They're always going to come back to what they know, the stability of mom and dad.
That's a real good point right there, stability of mom and dad, stability of the American family. But, you know, my point with that lady that called earlier this morning, and she was such a nice lady and very, very open about her family and her surroundings, is answer this short question and give me a real short answer because I got to run and do a commercial. Why don't parents care and get involved like they used to?
I don't know, Zeb. I just think they're distracted. I don't know, humans, human nature.
But why are we making excuses for them? And I'm not pointing the finger at you, Randy, but you're making excuses for them right now. Why are we making excuses for a lack of parental responsibility?
Well, it's going to come back and haunt them. You know, it will come back and haunt them. And you know, you see grandparents raising their grandchildren because mom and dad are one's in jail and the other one's on drugs.
Yeah, look at the city of Detroit. Look at this.
Our society. They're in our lives. They can have contact with our children. They can have contact with us. Given a desperate situation, they might even do things. Oh, God help us.
I agree. Randy, thank you so much. Appreciate your call.
See you.
You know, really, I thought about this, and I know that there's a group out there in the audience right now. There always is in every audience. That is sitting there going, oh, you think you're the perfect parent. Well, wait a minute. I'm not a perfect parent. I wasn't a perfect parent. All you have to do is probably ask Jake and Toby. But what I did do is get involved. Yes, I did get involved. So did Deanne. We were heavily involved in what was going on, what was being taught, and what the environment was in the school that surrounded them Monday through Friday. I don't know why parents can't have that same responsibility now. If I had a child in school today, and they came home and said, oh, well, Mom and Dad, there's a whole bunch of posters all over the school saying that God is dead and Satan is alive, you don't think that would perk my ears up and I'd demand answers from the superintendent or the principal? I would be in his or her office looking at their face, asking questions immediately. How can you allow posters in the school that say God is dead, Satan is alive, when at the same time you won't allow my child to pray? What's going on here? I want answers. Or if my child came home from a Kansas school and said, well, we have to sit in the class and we're being taught the 5 pillars of Islam, and that's certainly against our religion, isn't it, Mom and Dad? I would be in that school the next morning when the bell rang with the principal, and we're going to have a real eye-to-eye, jaw-to-jaw conversation as to why this is happening. I don't understand how people can get by with this silly, lame excuse of, oh, well, we're too busy. Oh, well, we've got so many things to do. I just don't understand that, and I'm not buying it. What, you want more bar time after work so you can sit and have a cold brewski with your friends? Is that what you call being a parent? Ladies and gentlemen, let's not forget our major sponsor, and that's, of course, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations. And all 7 locations with the very best of tires for your driving needs. Whatever driving you do, like if you're on kind of I drive to Phoenix once a week or I go here, then they've got the special tires just for you. They know all about the different tires, the different tread designs, and exactly what they will do for you and your safe driving. Stop in and talk to them today. All 7 locations really have the free peace of mind tire protection and free lifetime tire and mileage care. And don't forget the best in brake service. And, of course, shocks and struts, front end alignments, batteries, everything. It's all there for you at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers with Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, Lane and Rupert, John on Poline and Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. You're waiting too long. You need to be on the phone that night the minute you hear it, calling them darn principals and superintendent and the school board. And you do have children. You've got grandchildren in school.
That's right, I do, and I utilize every time I can to find out what's going on.
You know, I kind of believe that about you because that's the kind of guy you are.
Yes, I am, and I'm going to be... I do not look at education or any members of education as sacred cows, and if they think they are, then they're in the wrong profession and they need to be bounced out.
Well, you know, there's a lot of things that go on in the school that I don't really care for. And, you know, I've talked to several of them over the years. And I know my kids, my one daughter in particular, had a teacher that thought wolves were wonderful. And we really, really had to have them in Idaho. And I told her then that she was nuts. Well, you know, it's kind of proven true.
Yeah.
That lady is a nut.
All right, Jerry, listen, I got one more call before I got to go to the news. Good to hear from you, my dear friend. Take care of yourself.
We'll catch you later. Have a wonderful day.
All right.
May the Lord bless.
He has, Jerry. Thank you. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. This is Jeff, fire extinguisher Jeff.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Okay, here's a little bit of philosophy. I think it kind of answers your question on how come parents don't take responsibility anymore. Saw this hanging in a courtroom years ago. It says, we ask not why the child behaves so badly, but rather, who are the parents who have so poorly trained this child?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's apathy. This is the big thing about this generation that seems to don't care about their own children. It's apathy. And this is the way that they were brought up and trained in our own
schools. Yeah, but Jeff, where did it start? Why did it start, and how did it start? This apathetic situation to where, we're going to have a kid, yippee-skippy, okay, let him go to school, let him do what he wants, let the government feed him, let him stay in the school and have supper at night. We'll pick him up, have an hour to play with him in the evening, and then put him to bed and do the same routine the next day. Quickly, give me a short answer. I got to go to the news.
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. They train the parents of this generation in between us that the government will take care of your kid for you. You just have to send him to school, and we'll tell him what to think and how to think and all that.
Jeff, I appreciate your call, and God bless you, man. Thanks. See you at Lunch Bunch. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. I don't know. I'm not going to weaken on my stand. I just think the parents need to get more involved. Ask questions. Get answers. Demand answers. Demand answers. They're your kids. I'll be back in 6. Holy cow, we're back in the saddle for another hour. Zeb at the Ranch, and brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers, including, Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More, choked to death there almost, at 459 Overland and Burley, and our friends at Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always the Georgia soul. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and the arrangements. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at Georgia soul. Western Waste Services.
Always at your disposal. That's exactly true. They've got the summer rentals of all the restrooms with the standalone hand wash stations. Listen, if you're having a company party, a family reunion, any kind of a summer event, boy, I'm telling you, call Western Waste Services. Always at your disposal. And don't forget to get on the route service, have your garbage picked up. It's gone. It's out of there. Call them at 734-6969. Western Waste Services, the best. We're going to have our guest with us in just a moment. Stand by, but I also want to remind you about some excellent people at Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert, with the owner-manager, Joel Heward. Absolutely top-notch people, accepting and acknowledging the solemn responsibility that they have to provide families they serve with the best possible support and comfort, always with the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Please contact them today at 436-5636. Find out about pre-planning funerals to help alleviate and eliminate a lot of the stress and worry for our families. Call them, 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary, serving you. Ladies and gentlemen, right now we're going to go to the phone line, and we have with us the author of a great book, one of which I have yet to get. I would love to get a copy of this as soon as I can so I can have him back again. Godonomics, and the author, Chad Hovind. Chad, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's good. Where are you calling from, by the way, so I know what area of the United States I'm talking to?
Yeah, I'm in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, the home of the Cincinnati Reds, and also the Bungles.
That is exactly right. And usually about this time of year, we start hearing news about, hey, this will be the year, and then it wanes in about 45 days.
Well, your baseball team's not bad, and you've got some excellent players, but your football team hasn't been tough for a long time, and indications are it might not be for a long time yet.
Well, that doesn't mean that people don't have false hope. It's a lot like socialism. The idea of it always sounds better than the actuality of it. There's an old proverb that says, as a dog returns to his vomit, so the fool returns to his folly. So people are not giving up hope, even though evidence is totally contrary to it.
So, in other words, people are still buying season tickets, right?
That's right, and I'm not one of them.
I read this cheat sheet that you wrote, and it says pastors, preaching, and political correctness. And man, did that perk up my ears, because I think, and I'm going to say this up front, and we can work around this a little bit, Chad, but I think pastors and ministers are dropping the ball. They need to be much more eloquent, much more forceful about what's right and wrong on the pulpit with their sermons. Do you agree with me or not?
I do agree with you, and yet at the same time, we don't have to be bombastic or be inappropriate. I mean, you can be truthful. I love when Paul would show up. Paul had a way of persuading people who were unconvinced in a way that was factual. He combined, reason, logic, evidence, and his own personal experience in a way that wooed people through powerful, persuasive talk into the kingdom. So you don't have to be judgmental. You don't have to be bombastic to be truthful. And especially when it comes to politics. I don't think God's an elephant, and I don't think he's a donkey. However, he is a lion. And as a lion, he roars these timeless principles that should challenge us. I think many pastors are scared about addressing anything with political implications. The problem is everything in our society today has been politicized. So if you're not going to address anything that has political implications, you might as well just shut the door, because you can't talk about medicine, you can't talk about health care, you can't talk about the sanctity of life, you can't talk about what marriage is or what marriage isn't, you can't talk about what a human being is. Are we defined as a person with a body, soul, and spirit? So when I put Godonomics together, I wanted to create an educational tool, because many times I will hear, whether it's pastors on the left, like Reverend Al Sharpton. I mean, every time he says we want everything equal in everybody's house, I think, what is this guy a reverend of? I mean, honestly, that sounds more like the Communist Manifesto than it does the Holy Scriptures. Sometimes I'll hear, right-wing pastors, and they're so bombastic and they're so loud and so obnoxious. I think, I never want to sound like them. I wanted to create a tool that I was using and that other pastors could use to say, let's teach the Bible, and let's teach it truthfully and with grace, and let's educate people on what the Bible says about, say, government. There's about 10 different passages that are very clear about a Christian worldview when it comes to having a healthy skepticism toward the role of government, for example.
You know, and you bring up an excellent point. I want to pursue this just a little bit more, Chad. Number one, when you talk about the Reverend Al Sharpton or the Reverend Jesse Jackson, you take their philosophy, you take their attitude towards religion and how it applies and is applicable to mankind. How can they call themselves reverends when they're so divisive and so much of a troublemaker?
Yeah, I don't know, because I tell you, I have pastored in the poorest of poor in Chicago and Atlanta. I've worked in methadone clinics with those who are in addiction. I've been in multiracial ministry all my life. Probably have the least amount in my current church, but I've worked in Spanish congregations and black and white congregations. I know the challenges that come with building a multiracial ministry. And I tell you, it does not come from name-calling. It does not come from dividing people. It comes from the unity of the gospel. I mean, the main message of the gospel really is that there is only one race, for example, the human race. Mm-hmm. Scientists confirm that through the Human Genome Project. Confirmed there's only one race. We're all descendants of Adam. We're all descendants of Noah. And because of that, that is very unifying. We all have a common problem. We need forgiveness. And we all have a common solution, which is that God is our creator and gives us certain rights and asks us to live out those rights and to treat one another according to the golden rule. Well, that's very unifying. You know, Karl Marx, when you look at his writings, most of what we see today happening in both politics and religion can be traced back to Karl Marx. He was all about dividing the rich versus the poor, the management versus labor, a sense of entitlement, and you owe me. And if you read the Communist Manifesto, I read it again recently this summer, it's just amazing to see the mirroring of that in modern culture. And I always say, I don't know if you've read Paul Johnson, he's a historian. He quotes Karl Marx's mother as saying that she wished Karl Marx had accumulated more capital rather than talking about it, because he is just like a case study in a lazy life, and yet his methods and methodology is still being used today.
Absolutely. Now, I can imagine the absolute shock and awe if all of a sudden we turned on the 6 o'clock news or any of the cable news shows, whether it's Hannity, whether it's O'Reilly, doesn't make any difference, and all of a sudden there would be Al Sharpton and or Jesse Jackson and you, Chad Hovind, or any other man of religion that would be standing there and they'd be holding and shaking hands and saying, let's all try to unify, let's all try to get together and really promote mankind as a colorless society so that we can work together. Oh my goodness, that would shock everybody into submission.
Well, I think we've lost the idea of tolerance. Tolerance used to mean that we respect people we disagree with, and now tolerance means that we demonize people who disagree with us. And, we should be incredibly tolerant of the intolerant. And often it's the liberals and progressives who say we should be tolerant, and yet they are the most intolerant of the people who disagree with them. And so it's totally backwards. It's totally upside down. And, I do think that many people know just enough of the Bible to be dangerous. I got together with Lifeway Publishers this year, and I released a DVD called Fast Track Bible. And we take the whole church, the whole Bible in 8 weeks, because I'm very concerned about biblical literacy. Let's just take guys like this. I've heard Al Sharpton and others many times say the Bible advocates being your brother's keeper. Well, it doesn't. The Bible never, ever, ever, ever advocates being your brother's keeper. That is a textbook definition of codependency. Just try for one day to be somebody else's keeper. Try to make somebody work. Try and make somebody take responsibility. Again, I've worked with addicts overcoming recovery. You cannot be somebody's keeper. In fact, the only time that phrase is used in the Bible is by Cain, right after he killed his brother. So note to pastors, if you want to advocate taking care of your brother, you might want to not quote the guy who just killed his brother. I'm just saying. So I think many people quote these things thinking they're in the Bible, and they just really haven't thought through the whole counsel of what God says about this stuff.
Well, Chad, in a secular viewpoint, the same is be said about our Constitution. There are a large number of people, a great percentage of people, that honestly think that the statement, the separation of church and state, is in our Constitution.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, people will quote that, and they heard it somewhere, so it must be true. And a lot of it in the book Godonomics, I actually address what would God say to our founders, and I talk about why our Constitution flows out of a biblical worldview, and you see that most clearly in the Declaration. I mean, when we say that we get our rights from our Creator, and that includes, rights like life and liberty, the pursuit of happiness, presumed innocence, due process. I mean, these are rights that God gives us. And the reason we have governments, and it's articulated in the Declaration, is that governments are supposed to protect individual rights, like those rights to privacy, like those rights to property. And our founders felt like the government in England had advocated those responsibilities and, in fact, had become tyrannical. See, Christians, we believe that the individual lasts forever and that states are temporal. They only last at best a few thousand years if you're a Chinese dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
So the role of the state is always to protect individual rights. When that doesn't happen, tyranny always ensues through history. You think about Ahab. Ahab wanted a vineyard from Naboth, and Naboth said, hey, free exchange of privately held goods and services, I don't want to sell it to you. So he goes home, pouts. His wife Jezebel says, well, go kill him. You're the king. So he goes and kills Naboth to take his property. That is an example, and Elijah confronts him on it. That's an example of where the government is overstepping its bounds and actually violating property rights rather than protecting them. And when that happens, people of faith, like Elijah, need to step up and say, hey, that is wrong. Whether Naboth was rich or poor, the government has no right to take away people's property.
You know, when you mentioned that, it brought to mind, is this the reason, in kind of a general term, that pastors seem to be afraid today to really speak out and, in their sermons, talk about political correctness, talk about what's going on in society, talk about the ills of society? Are they basically afraid of government and what government might do to them and their church?
Well, I think yes. I think that's certainly part of it is fear. I think the other part is that they don't have the tools. I mean, most of us who go into pastoral ministry weren't trained in economics, and because of that, we didn't go into our careers for money. I mean, if you want to go and make a lot of money, you're probably not going to go into ministry. So that doesn't mean that you're necessarily anti-capitalism, but it does mean you probably haven't been motivated by money as a primary factor, and so you don't understand how it works. And because of that, you've probably never studied how the Bible really celebrates the entrepreneur. I mean, Gnosticism used to teach, and that was a Greek philosophy, that all matter was bad. You know, work was bad, money was bad. Aristotle and Plato held this position. But the Bible begins by saying that God reaches into the matter. It's not bad. He reaches into the commodities of this earth and fashions it into something. Well, this was radical. This meant that those of us who fashion things out of the ground, out of the commodities God's given us, we're actually imitating our creative creator. Then you see God blesses Abraham, and God uses his resources to even rescue his rebellious nephew Lot. You see the Proverbs 31 woman, an entrepreneur. You see Lydia, the seller of purple in the book of Acts. You see Barnabas, a wealthy landowner. And take Boaz in the book of Ruth. He saved the entire town of Bethlehem because of his wise stewardship as a business owner. Well, these are the passages that aren't preached on. All people go to is, hey, the rich young ruler, where Jesus says, sell everything you have. Well, Jesus doesn't say that to everybody. That particular guy had a problem with the love of money. Mm-hmm. He said the only way to deal with your particular problem is to sell everything. But the Bible esteems the entrepreneur because how are you going to be generous if you're broke? Of course God wants us to be productive, because if you can't provide for yourself, you're going to be leeching off somebody else. But if you actually are very productive, you can provide for yourself and help the poor. And God's heart is for the poor.
When you look at our situation in this country, Chad, I'd like you to answer this. We've been a very strong capitalistic country. We've been where you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You can be successful. You can create a small business that can be turned into a large business. But now we're on the road to socialism. It's a gimme, gimme, gimme. I want what the other guy has, but I don't want to work for it. Have we been on this road now too long to turn this car around? Is there a chance we can still go back to the principles of this country and what made it great?
That is a great question. You know, I believe Godonomics teaches that capitalism is not just a good idea, it's God's idea. And it is built on certain principles that I think we have gotten away from. Let's take work ethic, for example. Let's take incentive. And if you don't work, you don't eat. Rewarding the ant who prepares during the summer for the winter months. Instead, we punish the ant who saved, and we reward the sluggard who suddenly feels entitled to what the ant did. But if I was going to say, if there's one way in which we could turn this around, sort of the simplest way that would require a reset, is I think we've gotten away from the rule of law. In Mosaic law, God said the way you're going to have freedom, and Milton Friedman actually confirmed this, even in Russia. He said, if you have property rights without the rule of law, you're in trouble. The rule of law means that everybody's under the same standard. Whether you're the king, whether you're a bureaucrat, everyone has the same rules. If we had a constitutional amendment tomorrow that said all rules apply to all people equally, all of a sudden you'd have these loopholes changed. All of a sudden you wouldn't have all of the citizens forced into Obamacare while the Congress makes themselves exempt from it. I mean, if this thing is so great, why are you exempt from it?
Mm-hmm.
And the point being, when you have a different set of standards, there's rules for the taxpayers that are different from the people who make the tax laws, you totally have an upside-down economy that's never going to have the rule of law. Like I've likened before, it's like you're back in Hazard County and you've got Boss Hogg in charge. Boss Hogg are those spiritual porkers who want to take from one and give to another. And they make different rules from themselves than, say, the Duke boys. And if you happen to be a rich guy coming through Hazard County, they hire the IRS to be Roscoe P. Coltrane. They pull you over and say, you better give us a free concert or we're going to throw you into the brig. Well, that's an example of what happens when you don't have the rule of law. You start being able to have some business or some union or some individual bribe the government to make different rules for them than for somebody else. And I think as a society, we have an inner spidey sense that says something is wrong here. We've got to get back to the rule of law, and that would deal with a lot of the problems of how we've gotten into this socialism, Marxist way of thinking.
But when you say that, though, Chad, and I want to pursue that a little bit further, I've got about 4 minutes left here. How? I mean, that's a simple question. How?
Yeah, how would we get there?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you'd have to have, I mean, the problem, I think, on the trajectory is that you have a trajectory of folks where those who feel entitled are beginning to outnumber those who are the ones providing.
Mm-hmm.
And, having worked with addicts for many years, I'm always surprised at how painful rock bottom has to be until people hurt enough to change. But you do see some societies, I mean, even China, for example, has said, well, our communism didn't work. They've had to start moving in more of a privatization-type mindset. You think of Detroit, what's going on there. At some point you hit bankruptcy. At some point you hit a moment where you cannot keep doing what you're doing. As Margaret Thatcher says, the problem with socialism is you eventually run out of other people's money. Unfortunately, a lot of people get hurt before you come to that tipping point where you're willing to make some changes.
Absolutely.
So for me, I just know for myself, I'm going to teach my kids how to be, productive. And many of the lessons I teach in Godonomics is how to teach your church, yourself, your business, your kids how to not have this mindset. Because I think as things continue to deteriorate downward, those of us who are actually living debt-free lives, who have a hard work ethic, we're going to be the sought-after ones for businesses who are saying we want productive people because we've got to be more competitive than ever. So for me, it starts individual, and for me, I'm an edutainer, and I try and educate people in an entertaining way to say, let's get back to the basics in a way that you can communicate this to other people in a way that, again, it's not bombastic, it's very common sense.
Absolutely.
That's what Godonomics is. It's common sense, back when there was such a thing.
Absolutely. Chad Hovind, the author of Godonomics. Now, Chad, tell us again, where can the book be obtained, and give us all the sources.
Yeah, you can get it wherever books are sold, Christian bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. However, if you're interested in both the book and the DVD series, you can go to godonomics.com. That's www.godonomics.com. And you can actually get the DVD where I teach through all 6 sessions together. And then you can buy the book separately as a packet. And the book covers about 80% new material. But if you want a DVD to use in your church, or your homeschool, or a Tea Party group, or 912 group, or just for your own education, the DVD and the books are available there. godonomics.com.
Thank you so much, Chad Hovind. I appreciate you. I will have you back on the program. I guarantee it in the future. God bless, and thanks for taking your time this morning.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very nice individual right there, Chad Hovind, with his book, Godonomics, and kind of spelling it out that we're on the wrong road right now, and we've got to get the road map, the Rand McNally, and get back on the right path soon in this country. Hey, don't forget Idaho Lending Group. Boy, these are great guys and gals. I'm telling you, I was blessed when I came across them, and they saved me a lot of money. I'm giving you my own personal testimonial right here. Deanne and I needed a refinance on our mortgage, and we were just running into brick walls. And then all of a sudden, we ran across Scott Martin and Idaho Lending Group at 1182 Eastland Drive North in Twin Falls, telephone number 734-5626. And in 5 minutes, literally, they saved me thousands, with a plural S, of dollars. Absolutely caring, courteous, knowledgeable. Their goal is to serve you. So please call them today. NMLS number 181777, Equal Opportunity Lender, Idaho Lending Group, 734-5626. Well, you know what's going on right now down in Tremont, Utah? Well, I'm going to tell you, it's the Box Elder County Fair and Golden Spike Rodeo. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to be down there this week for the Great Big Rodeo, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And they've got just such ripping good times and fun down there. And every morning on August 22nd through the 24th, they have from 6 to 9 in the morning a great big chuck wagon breakfast. Knock your socks off. Pancakes that are about the size of hubcaps. Holy smokes, those are big. Well, tonight's the big team branding and kids calf scramble down there at the Box Elder County Fairgrounds. And tomorrow night, the Bulls, Broncs, and Barrels. That's always a fun crowd pleaser. And then, of course, the Great Big Golden Spike Rodeo starts on Thursday, go through Saturday night. And Friday night will be tough enough to wear pink night. And Saturday night, Patriot night, it's going to be a lot of fun and really an Americana in display. It's going to be fantastic. So don't forget the Box Elder County Fair and Golden Spike Rodeo. Blue Jeans and Country Dreams in Tremont, Utah. Really, really nice people down there. Had Brent Rose on the program yesterday. You will not find better folks than he and his family. Just really nice people. Don't forget what's going on during the blazing hot summer sale over at Lee's Furniture Floors and More. Lee's Furniture Floors and More, 0 down, no interest until 2014. No kidding? Holy smokes. You got to see everything to believe it. And let me tell you, living room groups and all the dining room groups and all the rolls and rolls and rolls and rolls of carpet and all the flooring and the mattresses and the bedroom units. Oh, my goodness sakes. What are you waiting for? Please stop in and talk to them today. Nice people at Lee's Furniture Floors and More, 459 Overland in Burley. They're waiting to see you. Oh, Gina, how's the morning going? I haven't had a chance to see if your mood had lightened up any.
No.
Okay, goodbye. See you later.
Okay, see you later. Jerry came in today, and I'm like, Jerry, you're probably the only person I'm going to be nice to today. And he's like, I like that idea. I'm like, I'm sure you do.
You know, you have those days, and I have them too.
Yeah.
Where you just want to reach out and play AT&T with somebody's nose.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Reach out and touch somebody, but not in the nice way.
And you have attained that goal.
Today, we're going to come close, but I think today is going to be one of those days where I just kind of remain in my hole, as it were, which is the studio, and I'm going to keep the doors closed so everybody knows. Just leave Gina alone today.
You are really kind of a lot like me, though. You have a penchant, and I'm not trying to paint you into a corner, but you have a penchant for doing like I do, letting my shotgun mouth sometimes be overridden with my BB gun brain.
Sometimes my internal filter does not stop things from coming out. And so that's why I usually keep the doors closed, and then everybody knows, oh, we better leave Gina alone, because sometimes my mouth gets ahead of myself.
Let me just tell you that my mouth has absolutely created chasms of problems for me.
You too?
Yeah! Imagine that, sweetie!
I know. And, okay, so just so everybody knows, I put up a link to Chad Hoven's book up on your Facebook page, so they can check that out if they like to.
Great.
And I've also posted up Dave Vigo's book as well, and I'm getting ready to give him a call so we can get him on the air.
All right, I'll do a couple commercials. I'll be right with you. Thank you.
Okey-dokey.
Don't forget life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. All of these items need to be addressed. And the best people to talk to are, of course, Dean Cameron and Todd Siemens at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Now, here's the number. Write it down. Give them a call today. Don't put it off. We always put this on the back burner, and we need to take care of it for our own security and our business security. Call them at 436-4424. 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, serving you in Rupert. Really nice people. Oh, and by the way, talking about nice people, that leads me to come right up to this part and tell you about Let's Ride. Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. Yup! That's where the fun is sold. Oh, my goodness. They're open 9 to 6, Tuesdays through Saturdays. And they've got now in stock the Can-Am Maverick Max 4-seater. Ho, ho, ho! Travel out in the hills in style. This is a ripping fun machine. And they got many of the 2014 models showing up daily. And if you need some service work, they got the best people in the world in their service department, bar none. Stop over. See, absolutely where the fun is sold. I keep telling you that. They got a showroom that's just chock full of all the ATVs, street bikes, dirt bikes, everything. Let's ride. Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. You stop in and see them today. Well, let's check with, and I can call her this because she's going to say the same back to me, Miss Temperamental.
He's on the line, and Jerry just brought me in a sack of M&Ms to make me feel better.
So you're in much better personality.
No.
And you mean to tell me that your personality can be bought for just a little bag of M&Ms?
No.
I didn't think so.
If it was tequila, yes, but M&Ms, no.
If it was what?
Tequila.
Tequila like in a liquid form?
Tequila like in a liquid form, like Cabo maybe.
With a worm in the bottom?
No, gosh, no. Mezcal's nasty.
Oh. Well, you picky woman.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, right now I get a chance to visit with a dear friend on our program. I have the utmost respect for this man, and believe me, he's accomplished it all. He's the executive CEO and president of Executive Management Services, and he knows politics. Mr. Dave Bego. Good morning, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing great, Zeb. How you doing?
Oh, I'm just arguing with my bored girl over there. She's just fussy all the time.
Yeah, she was kind of telling me about your BB brain or something like that.
No, I was saying that sometimes my shotgun mouth overrides my BB gun brain, and I've done that many times.
I love it.
Hey, Dave, I really want to get you on the program this morning and not only talk about unions and how desperate they're getting, according to a very interesting blog that you wrote, but I want to talk to you a little bit about something that I'm very concerned about. I think you as a businessman, you are also, and a family man, and that is our security in knowing that this country right now is peering into every aspect of our lifestyle. They've got the drones in the air. They've got the cameras on the light posts at an intersection. They can tape your conversations. They have your emails. Are you as concerned as I am that the NSA and everyone else in this country knows more about Dave Bego and Zeb Bell than we do ourselves?
Well, yeah, and I was at a conference here in New Mexico a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about that stuff, and the truth of the matter is they've got a file on everybody in this country, and obviously they're going to have bigger files on people that speak out more than they do on other ones, and it is concerning. You know, that's not what our founding fathers believed in or thought that we would develop into, and we've got a government that's run amok.
Has this modus operandi occurred primarily because of security after 9/11, or is this kind of a pre-planned approach to take over America and make it kind of a George Orwell's 1984?
Well, I got to believe it's a combination of both, Zeb. I think 9/11 exacerbated the whole thing. I think there was things in the works before that to increase the control of Americans in their everyday lives and lead us towards socialism. I think the progressives are doing that, and I think the conservatives, and there's some progressives in that group too, but they fell into the trap even more after 9/11 and that. And now we have an administration that is backed by people who are bound and determined to bring this country down, and they're using all of this to their fullest extent, and it's scary. I mean, you know, you worry about the financial markets and how long they can hold up. I mean, you know, let's face it. The only reason the stock market is up is because of the Fed's money policy and other people bidding up certain stocks in that. If you look at the price to earning ratios, they're way out of whack, and you know, it's something that we as a country really have to be concerned about, because middle America is not doing that well. We're looking at an artificial prop-up of Wall Street, and that's the only thing that people are looking at right now.
Artificial prop-up of Wall Street. I'd like you to be more definitive on how you mean that and what it does mean to the rest of America. What is that artificial prop-up?
Well, when the Feds are controlling the money and they're printing money and continue to sell bonds and buy the bonds back, it makes money available to Wall Street and the financiers and some of the big companies. And they in turn are artificially, they're driving up the price of their own stocks. And but when you look behind the scenes, and I've talked to some economists on this and financial guys, the price to the earning ratios. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that really aren't making any money or making very little, and their stocks continue to drive up. Well, at some point, this has to collapse. We as a country can't keep printing money. We continue to go into debt, and once they stop printing money, we're going to see interest rates going to go up. We're going to see the stock market collapse, and we're going to see middle America collapse because interest rates are going to go up. There's just a whole lot of things involved in this that I think everyday Americans need to be concerned about, and I would say very liquid if I was people.
Let me ask you this, Dave. Are we at a point of no return? I'm not trying to sound negative. I'm not trying to sound like doom and gloom, but are we at a point of no return that we can't turn this truck around on the highway and go the other way? Or has our economic system gone so far that inflation is going to run wild, money's going to be devalued? That's just what's got to happen until we have a crash.
Well, yes, and that's true. I think that if we get the right people in and we do the right things and we reduce our costs, we control entitlement programs, we quit printing money, and we quit trying to be a big government, a big brother to everybody, I think, we can start turning around and quit giving money away overseas. I've talked about this, I think, on a blog about a year ago on American exceptionalism, how we turn that back around. But there's a lot of things to it. We got to seal our borders. We got to allow exploration of oil in our own country and other natural resources, and do things that put us back on a sound footing and give people jobs. And this government doesn't want to do that.
When you say this government doesn't want to do that, Dave, you and I are on the same page. I don't trust this Obama administration. I don't think that they're doing anything for the benefit of growth and progress in America. But yet, on the other hand, all of our leaders that we send from various states, congressmen, senators, they all seem to get Potomac fever, and they forget about representing their constituents when they get back east. And I am extremely upset at even our own Idaho delegation because I don't think they're doing their job.
Well, the problem is, Evan, I've been to Washington a lot. You're right, they get tied up in the Washington lifestyle and the politics and the power and of course the intimidation and the pressure in that. And as I spoke to some people when I was at this meeting, my concern is that people are too worried about getting reelected instead of doing what's right for the American people. And what we need is people to stand up and say, I don't care if I get reelected or not. We're going to start doing what's right for America and for the future of our kids and our grandkids. And there were some politicians there that definitely agreed with this. But unfortunately, they're in the minority right now. We have too many of them that want to be nice guys, like McConnell and McCain and some of those. And you can't be nice guys with the group that's in the White House and in this administration. They don't understand that. You have to put them on the defensive. You have to go on offense, and basically you got to punch the bully in the nose.
Would you be an advocate for term limits and see that passed across the United States?
Oh, absolutely. I think we definitely need it. Of course, they always say, well, yeah, but then you limit people that are really good, and it'll only be there a short period of time. And my answer to that is good. We only want them there for a short period of time. We want them going back in the private economy where they can help it grow.
Absolutely. Dave, there's been quite a bit of story the last couple of weeks about various hamburger chains, fast food restaurants, etc., that have been boycotted. People have walked off their job in demanding a $15 an hour wage. I mean, my goodness, almost $125, $35 a day to flip burgers and put them in a bun. What are your thoughts about what's happening with the minimum wage in the United States?
Well, Zeb, this is all my buddies at the SEIU. They're underwriting all this. They're spending millions of dollars on this 15 campaign that they're throwing across the country. And the reason they're doing it is because they're trying to organize people. They're getting these people stirred up, and the ultimate goal is that they represent these people and they go and get these wages. They don't want minimum wage to go up. They want to be the negotiators for this. And they're going after people like McDonald's and Walmart and some of these other people. And it's the same type of campaign they ran against me. They're just doing this on a national level with McDonald's and that. And then behind the scenes, they're doing some of the other stuff, like, intimidating the employees and the owners and things like that. This has nothing to do with whether they care about the employees or not. This is all about getting people organized and members of the union so they collect union dues.
Dave, tell us from a businessman's standpoint, and you have many, many, many employees across the United States, what would something as a $15 minimum wage, what would that do to the economy and inflation?
Well, it would, it's all relative, and that's what people don't understand. And I'll tell you a story. I think I've told a story because people do get it. But, the cost of living would go up. We'd become uncompetitive in the global markets. And, we'd have an economic crash in this country. It's pure and simple. But here's the story I got to tell you. When I was being attacked by the SEIU, and by the way, we need more politicians that do this, I went around and I talked to all my employees in the different buildings and different cities where they were being attacked. And I sat down and had pizza with them and talked to them. And when I started talking about the reality of things, there was one down in Cincinnati where there's about 40 employees in the room. And before I could get into much of what I was going to say, this middle 50-ish black lady started waving her hand and said, "Can I talk?" And I said, "Sure." And I didn't know what she was going to say. I was taking a risk, but that's okay. I believe people should have freedom of speech. And she stood up, and she looked around the room, and she said, "You people need to wake up and listen to Mr. Bego. What he says is true. We might make double our wages in New York, but you know something? Cost of living is twice as much, too. These people treat us well. We have our decent wages and benefits. They give us good chemicals to work with, and they keep us safe. We need to support this man." And the whole room, except for two people that had SEIU buttons, stood up and cheered and roared for her.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned the SEIU involved with this minimum wage fight. You've had quite a few battles, according to your books, The Devil at My Doorstep and The Devil at Our Doorstep, in explaining how sinister the SEIU and unions are in general. In the latest blog that you had written, it said, "Desperate unions grow weary of phony distractions." What are you referring to as far as the phony distractions?
Well, it's a takeoff, obviously, on our president's phony scandals. Mm-hmm. But, he's the king of phony. And he's done it. He's done it to the people that got him in the White House. And this is just a perfect example of he doesn't care about anybody but himself and his own objectives. And he'll run over the people that supported him to get there. And, there's a couple of them that are just very, very blatant. One is that, early on, the unions wanted card check, and which is they don't have to have an election. They can go around and just get a bare majority of employees to sign union cards, and the employers automatically unionize. And they do that through intimidation and scare tactics and, misinformation, all that kind of stuff. Well, he worked on it for a while, and he, when it didn't fit his needs anymore, he kind of pushed it aside. And then he appointed people to the National Labor Relations Board who are now have been found unconstitutional. The unions are tired of that stuff. But the big one is health care. With Obamacare, What the other unions didn't realize was going on behind the scenes is the SEIU, who represents a big majority of healthcare workers, are the ones that pushed Obamacare through. Remember, Andy Stern was in the White House 22 times during the first year of Obama's administration?
Right.
That's what he was in there doing, getting the health care program pushed through and approved. And that helps the SEIU because they expected to gain more membership through expanded health care. The other unions thought, oh, it sounds good and everything, and they were led, given a line, a bowl, and they went along with it. Now they're waking up to reality. And they're getting irritated with these distractions that the president uses to take their eye off the ball, too.
Dave, final thoughts, but every day I become more concerned, and caller, just a minute, I'll be right with you. I become more concerned about the 2014 midterm elections. I honestly think that the Republican Party is taking way too much of a blasé attitude about those elections, and I firmly believe that if they don't do something to really step up to the plate and try to hit some home runs, the House, the Senate, and Obama will be a dictatorship.
Well, obviously, that's their goal, that's their objective, and I'm one of those that are concerned that they're going to try and achieve it, whether it's through the elections or through some forceful takeover of the economy. But the problem is the Republican Party and a lot of conservatives don't understand is that we need strong candidates that are willing to stand up and say no. And I'll give you one I really like, Seb, and you'd like him too. I've met him, I've heard him speak, is Scott Walker, the governor of Wisconsin. This guy gets it. He went after the unions. He put a ground game together that they went out and they convinced a lot of these people they were being misled. And then he himself, just like what I said I did with my employees, he went out into the neighborhoods of different ethnic groups and, the Hispanics and the blacks and that, and he sat down and talked to them. And he told them what it was all about and what his ideas were to fix it. And everybody got behind him. These are the type of candidates we need if we're going to win this thing.
Absolutely. Caller, go ahead with your question, please.
My quick question is, people in the fast food chain are boycotting, trying to get a $15 an hour wage. And what's that going to do do you think, to kids just out of high school trying to get a small job, a minimum wage job when they're going to college in between classes type of thing? How do you think that's going to affect them? And I'll hang up and listen.
All right, Dave, if you would, please.
Well, it's real simple, and this is the other thing that the SEIU doesn't tell you, or other unions for that matter, when they're trying to organize people. When you start pushing wages that much higher, what happens is companies have to survive somehow, and the way they do it is they reduce the number of employees. And so if you go to $15 an hour, they're going to cut their payroll in half to pay for it. And you're not going to have jobs for, high school kids. I mean, I know when I was young, Zeb, and you might have at one time, I used to pump gas. When we still had people that did that. And made a couple bucks an hour. And I was happy to do it, to have spending money and do things. These people don't get this. They don't care about this. All they care about is membership dues, because unions are losing power and they need more members and more money to keep the power.
Dave, one final thought, and you're going to think I'm completely a right-wing nut when I go over the bridge here, but this mess in Egypt with the Muslim Brotherhood and Morsi and the possibility of not having the ships with oil come down the Straits of Hormuz or be able to go through the Suez Canal, etc., to get here to the United States, all of this seems like it's falling right into Obama's green energy program. Am I wrong, or does this look like a cap-and-trade second edition?
Well, I'm sure some of that could be true. I think he's just inept, and he's getting caught. I mean, I think he's got other allegiances besides God in this country, and I think he tried to help them, and it's backfiring on him. But you know something? I talked to you about my blog a year ago about regaining American exceptionalism. In there, I talk about one thing is energy independence, and we can do that. We have enough energy in this country between natural gas and oil and all that we don't need that oil from over there. And the faster we can develop it and get it out of the ground, and we don't have to worry about what those people do over there anymore. And on top of that, we don't have to send all of our money over there supporting the regimes like in Egypt and Libya and all those places.
Absolutely. Final question, probably the biggest question of the day. Indianapolis Colts, what are they looking like this year? And are they going to be better than my Green Bay Packers?
Well, I don't know if you saw the game the other night, Sunday night, but they beat up on the New York Giants in New York pretty good. In that first quarter, I was pretty proud of them, and I haven't seen Green Bay play yet, but I kind of think the Colts are going to be the one.
I have seen Green Bay play, and and I'm starting to break out in a cold sweat right now, as a matter of fact. I have a really scary feeling that I'm going to be wearing blue and white instead of green and gold.
Well, I think you may be too. Now, we don't play each other head-to-head this year unless we get into the playoffs.
That's exactly right, and that's probably fortunate for me and my checkbook. Hey, God bless you, my dear friend.
I used to be a Green Bay fan until the Colts came to Indianapolis, and Green Bay's number 2 for me behind the Colts. So I hope they both do well. They meet in the playoffs, and the Colts move on.
Yeah, but I'm going to have to open up a winery to pay you off.
Hey, I would be happy with that.
All right, listen. President and CEO, Executive Management Services, great author, The Devil at My Doorstep and The Devil at Our Doorstep, Mr. Dave Bego. God's blessings to you, my dear friend. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, and then, by the way, real quick, I think there's a link on your website now where they can buy my book, and Zeb, I don't know if I told you this, but all the proceeds we're giving to Wounded Warriors.
Oh, wonderful, and thank you very much. I appreciate that information, and we'll keep plugging it all the time, Dave. And again, thank you for your time on the program.
Well, thank you, and you guys have a great day.
We will, sir. Thank you much. Really, truly one of the nicest men I've ever met, and blessed to have him on my program, Dave Bego, and the president, CEO of Executive Management Services, huge company based out of Indianapolis, Indiana. And I'm very, very glad to have him on the show. Oh, my, let's see where I'm headed. Oh, I know what I've got to do. For heaven's sakes, I'm running a little bit late. Gina's going, come on, Zeb. Well, we've got to tell everybody about the weather. MichaelRogersWeather.com, brought to you this hour by Red's Trading Post, 203 Fifth Avenue South in Twin Falls. Ryan and the rest of the crew. And they've been in the family since 1936 with Red's Trading Post. And I'll guarantee you they have all your hunting needs, all the guns, all the knives, all the accessories, all the ammunition, all the reloading equipment, everything for you. They know guns at Red's Trading Post. And they're looking for used firearms, too. They'll give you a great deal on them at Red's Trading Post. Here now, Michael Rogers Weather.
Hey, everybody. Michael Rogers from MichaelRogersWeather.com. No change as far as the weather for today and tomorrow. But you can kind of circle for Thursday. First time we're going to see a bona fide thunderstorm in the forecast. Otherwise, sunny and hot today, 92 for the high. 66 for the overnight low, more the same for tomorrow. And then we can get some rain action when we get to Thursday. So enjoy the weather. It is the only weather you've got.
Thank you, Michael RogersWeather.com. Brought to you by Red's Trading Post, 203 Fifth Avenue South in Twin Falls. You be sure and stop into Red's today. Oh, Gina, I always feel better when I get done talking to Dave Bego. He's just a really, really nice guy.
He is just a great gentleman, and he was telling me how the sale of his book actually goes to Wounded Warriors. I'm like, you know what? I think I just fell in love with you.
Well, and I'm glad you put that on Facebook. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you. And I just wish there was something I could do. I can't send via email biscuits and gravy to you to put you in a better mood.
That is okay. I've got several candy bars now. People think that chocolate always makes me feel better, which it does, but that only lasts a minute.
Have you ever sat outside? I got to ask you this. And do you have hummingbirds over at your place?
No. I have 4 cats, and so hummingbirds would be dead in a minute.
You know, that bird is the most amazing bird of any bird in any aviary anywhere in the world. I am so impressed with the mechanics of how a hummingbird can go forward, backward, up, down, and take off at 900 miles an hour. That is an amazing creature.
They truly are, and what I like, their wings are going like 1,000,000 miles an hour, but yet they're stationary.
Yeah, they can hover. They can hover. And now here's the deal you're not going to believe. But on my deck out here, we've got a whole bunch of bird feeders, for the hummingbirds.
Right.
And I got one that's less than 8 inches away from me. And here's about a half a dozen of these birds come over, and they just congregate right by me, by my left arm, and you can hear the brrrr and feel the cool wind from their wings, and then they turn and they look at you with those long beaks like, what are you staring at? We're just getting something to eat. And they're just really becoming domesticated.
Yeah, but they kind of get used to you after a while. You become a part of their surroundings, and so, yeah, they're probably checking you out.
They're the only thing on earth that gets used to me.
Well, except for your wife and the dog.
But they are an amazing creature, and they come with the different colors and everything. Some have kind of a green back, and some of them are kind of a gray, and some have black and white tails, and some have a brilliant orange.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're really something.
I love hummingbirds, and growing up, we used to have a whole bunch of hummingbird feeders out, and so we used to see them all the time. But now I don't dare, because it wouldn't be fair to the birds.
We witnessed a mid-air collision yesterday.
A mid-air collision?
Mid-air collision between two hummingbirds.
We've got a phone call for you.
Oh, okay, I'll take that call real quick. I've only got 30 seconds left. Good morning, you're on the air.
Oh, just wanted to tell you, God don't exist or God's dead, and you're talking about one of his creations that's so beautiful.
The hummingbirds.
Absolutely.
You have a lot of them over at your place?
Oh, we have a few, not a bunch.
Well, Deanne stuck up like 27 bird feeders, and we've got them all over the place. I love those birds.
They're beautiful.
Now, how do they do that? How do they all of a sudden just hover and then back up? No other bird can do that.
God got me. I don't understand. God made them that way. I saw something very interesting the other evening coming back from over at Castleford. Well, it was just west of your place a little ways. There were 5 eagles sitting on top of a wheel line using the sprinkler for a bird bath.
Oh, my goodness sakes. Now
I didn't get a video of it.
Oh, that's too bad. We've got a lot of eagles over here in this part of the country. Listen, someday...
It was quite the sight.
Someday we're going to get on the air when I have more time and talk more about hummingbirds. Thanks for your call, my friend. God bless you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Got to run to the news. I'll be right back.
Hey, buddy.
Now, that was interesting. Now, if I were to ask Gina what happened with the mood she's in today, she would tell me to go float a rock in the ocean.
I hit 2 wrong buttons. 2.
I love it. I just really do love it.
It's not Monday.
All day. Hey, welcome back to hour number 3. I think it is. Zeb at the Ranch. And we're brought to you by, of course, our major sponsor, and that's your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley, and Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service. Get rid of your garbage today. 734-6969. Real quick, we want to tell you about the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. Good food. That's the end of the commercial. Good food at the Chadwick. Well, you need more? Well, okay, I'll tell you. They've also got a senior citizen dinner special Monday through Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m., only $5.95. And today, they've got beef stroganoff with garlic toast and super salad, just $5.99. It's fantastic. $5.95, pardon me. I gave you some more money back. At the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley, you stop in and see those great people today. Okay? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is time now for Dr. Maplebar, brought to you by I'm kidding, Dr. History, brought to you by the new CSI Sage Truck Driving School in Burley, 878-5802, and that's, of course, with our dear friend Lucky Bourne. You can become a professional truck driver. And now, without further ado, here is Dr. Maplebar with bacon. Good morning.
Good morning, Zeb. How you doing?
I'm hungry.
That does kind of make me, a little hungry there, but...
I want to tell everybody how nice you are, along with your daughter. Saturday night, over the catwalk and down through the woods to grandmother's house he went, and brought over to the announcer stand a huge box of delicious, hot, fresh maple bars with bacon. It was absolutely fantabulous, and I got another new lover. Not me. I mean, that didn't come out right. A lover of maple bars with bacon. A great big burly bulldogger from Texas was up there, and I said, "You got to try one of these." And he looked at him and he went, "Wait a minute. There's bacon on this maple bar." And I said, "Yeah, that's what makes it great." "Nah, I don't think so." Well, he ate a bite and he goes, "Can I have another one to take back to the trailer?"
Yeah, they're kind of catching on, aren't they?
Oh, ho, ho. But thank you.
At the booth, they tell me they've had people come over and say, "Hey, I want one of those with bacon on it." And they say, "Well, we don't make them."
Oh, really? Well, they're going to have to start. And by the way, thank you for your kindness. How did your class reunion go?
Well, you know, it was interesting. There was these kind of older, wrinkled, gray-haired people there, and I just didn't fit in with all them.
Oh, do I have a couple of lines I'd like to use right now?
No, it was good. We had a good time. It was fun.
Well, listen, I've got some notes about CSI and their truck driving school, but what are we going to talk about? I'll get that inserted during the break.
Okay, before I forget, though, I want to tell you I really enjoyed that dedication to the flag at the beginning of the rodeo.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That was great. I hope you keep doing that.
I wrote that about, I think, 6-7 years ago, and I've had a lot of requests to do that, and I thank you very much.
Yeah, that was great. We're going to talk about a little known, if anybody knows, this guy. His name is Kit Joy. Kit Joy, that's the guy we're going to be talking about, and his gang. This is kind of a misfit gang, and you'll see why as we go along here, okay?
Okay, you bet. Go ahead.
Just let me know when you want to stop.
You betcha.
Okay, just picture this. The Southern Pacific train, it's churning its way down there in New Mexico, and it's a chilly afternoon in November 1883. The engineer is a guy named Webster, and he's looking at his watch, and 5 miles ahead is the next stop. The train was right on schedule. He and the fireman have been working together for a couple of years, and they'd never been late. But fate had other plans this morning. As they were going down the track, all of a sudden, they yelled, "There's a hole in the track."
Oh, no!
The track was gone. Webster lunged for the controls, brakes on, engine reversed, but it was too late. So in an instant, here's this heavy locomotive bouncing across wooden ties where there had been a track. Well, they knew that they were in trouble, so they yelled to each other, "Jump." Well, the fireman, he actually tumbled to safety. He got down to the ground okay, but Webster, the engineer, as he was getting ready to jump, all of a sudden you heard gunfire.
Uh-oh.
Well, he was killed immediately, fell out of the train. The fireman managed to crawl to safety undetected as the locomotive and the first 4 cars jumped the track, or what was not the track. And then there was silence for a few minutes, and then the calm was disturbed once again as 4 men burst forth from cover shooting and at the closed door of the mail car and yelling out that this is a holdup, and one of the men was this Kit Joy. So the Kit Joy gang was born, and here they go. Now these 4 men, Kit Joy, Mitch Lee, Frank Taggart, and a guy named George Washington Cleveland, had been drifters the day before, and by chance they'd kind of got together and they had a common desire, and that was for easy money. So it was probably Kit Joy who first suggested hitting this Southern Pacific train. So they'd lain in wait that day, waiting for the train to come after they'd taken the tracks off. And this was their first holdup, and was not real successful. These guys would turn out to be complete flops when it comes to robbing anything, and the gang itself would soon disintegrate. But anyway, the train was stopped, and the mail car, which they thought was the express car, they checked it and found that it was the wrong car. So they went back to the express car where they forced the messenger to open the safe. Well, all they got was $800.
$800 for that?
Yeah, for all this work. And one of the men, Mitch Lee, shot and wounded the messenger, the guy inside. Didn't kill him, but just shot him. So meanwhile, okay, picture the passengers in the back. It was pretty clear what was going on up front. So they could only expect that the passenger car would be next. So all these people started getting their rings, their watches, their jewelry, their money, and they stashed it in water coolers, behind pipes, in the seats, or wherever they might think the bandits wouldn't find it. And the passengers would later find that their efforts were unnecessary because basically they never did come back to the passenger car.
Well, now, wait a minute.
No one dared leave the passenger car except one guy. He decided he was going to go see what's going on. This wasn't a good move for him. He got out, went to see what was going on. He came back minus $155 in his watch.
Well, now, I've got a question there, though. You would think, Dr. History, that if the train and the wood car or the coal car and 2 or 3 other cars went off the tracks in a kind of a mess, a melee of railroad tracks and lack of and cars and everything, it would have absolutely thrown all the other cars either off the tracks or into such a braking system that people would have got thrown through the windows.
You know, and that's a good question. The only thing I can think of is that maybe it just wasn't, you know, they did throw on the brakes and reverse the engines enough to maybe they did get it slowed down enough to where the other cars were okay.
Oh, man.
That's the only thing I can think of. So,
okay.
Anyway, you know, after a little time of waiting and watching, the occupants of the car saw the bandits disappearing over the hill, and so they retrieved their valuables. And about 11 o'clock that night, a special train arrived to take the passengers and their baggage back to the nearest station. So now this might be a good time for a break if you want, Zeb.
It would. I got one quick question. What state did this happen in?
This is New Mexico.
New Mexico.
Have you heard of Socorro?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, I have.
Okay, and then there's another town... let's see. Anyway, Socorro is where a lot of this takes place.
All right, we'll be back for more of the continuing saga of dumb train robbers in just a minute. Stand by. Hey, would you like to start earning $30,000 to $40,000 a year in as little as 4 or 5 weeks? Well, then you'd better call Lucky Bourne at CSI's new Sage Truck Driving School in Burley right now, 878-5802. You'll get one-on-one over-the-road training with all the necessary endorsements. And when you've earned your CDL, their team of professionals will help you get your first truck driving job, too. New classes begin every week. Call Lucky Bourne right now at the new CSI Truck Driving School in Burley, 878-5802. And by the way, representatives from Sage Truck Driving School, which operates at the College of Southern Idaho's Minnecasia campus in Burley, will hold an information session for everyone who would like to know more about the program and about truck driving careers. It's going to be held from 6 to 9 this Thursday in rooms 276 and 277 of CSI's Taylor Building. Don't forget that. And now, back more with train robberies and all kinds of exciting Western lore and fiction and truth. Here's Dr. History.
Okay. Here we go. Kid Joy and his gang, 4 of them altogether. Well, almost at once, the Southern Pacific and the Wells Fargo. It's that milk I had this morning. Now I know why you don't drink milk when you're doing the announcing.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, so the Southern Pacific and the Wells Fargo offered a joint reward totaling about $8,000 for the capture of what they called the Gauge Train Robbers, Kid Joy's gang. So law officers, private citizens, everybody scoured the territory. No clue was overlooked. Now, weeks later, these guys were aware that they were being pursued, so the gang separated. Now, George Washington Cleveland happened to be a man of race, African-American, color, I don't know what that's what he was, and this definitely stood out. Well, he headed for this town of Socorro, and his actions would actually be the undoing of the gang. So here's George Washington Cleveland. His presence obviously aroused a little suspicion in Socorro, where Officer Whitehall recalled the description of the 4 men, one of them being African-American. So he immediately arrested Cleveland and informed him, not truthfully, but maybe like a TV show, that he was known to be one of the Gauge Train Robbers, and the rest of the gang, he said, had been captured and had said that he, George Washington Cleveland, was the murderer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he wasn't, but anyway, so Cleveland cracked. Kid Joy, Mitch Lee, and Frank Taggart had been his companions, and Kid Joy was the leader, but they had all been drifting cowhands, none of them in trouble before until they got together to rob the train. So no one meant to do any killing, but Mitch Lee had done it on his own. He was the bad guy. Well, Cleveland's arrest and confession made the other arrest a little easier. Frank Taggart was picked up, leaving only Mitch Lee and Kid Joy. Well, These two guys showed up about 120 miles east of Socorro, a place called Horse Spring Ranch. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but
no.
They were looking for a job, and a couple of enterprising cowboys suspected these two guys as being in on this. So they asked them to join their party. They were going to go to Socorro looking for work. And so, unsuspecting, Lee and Joy threw in with them. And, well, that night as they slept, these two cowboys disarmed them, tied them up, and the whole bunch was last behind bars. They took them into a place called Silver City.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Kit Joy gang had been almost 2 months behind bars, and perhaps the jailers got a little careless, and you can tell what's coming. During the morning exercise period in the Silver City jail yard that day, Kit Joy and his men jumped their two guards, took their guns. The surprised lawmen were tied up, gagged, and locked in the jail, in a cell. So here we have the gang. They broke into the guard room and got some guns. And in a few minutes, the gang was ready to move. Now, there were some other prisoners in the jail, too, and they said, hey, do you want to join us? And there's two guys that accepted, a guy named Charles Spencer and another guy named Charles Chavez. So that now we've got 6 of them. Okay, so it was 9:30 in the morning, and Kit Joy, he kind of opened the door real quiet-like, and no alarm had been sounded, and the coast looked clear, so they moved quickly past the sheriff's office, well, which wasn't real smart, but just then a door opened, and there was a deputy named Hall. He looked out just in time to see 6 guns pointing back at him, so he jumped back and slammed the door shut, and he yelled, jailbreak, and well, anyway, the gang got to a corral, and they were saddling horses for their escape. And meanwhile, Deputy Hall was getting together a posse. And so the 6 mounted men, they thundered through a gathering crowd, and there was one onlooker that raised his shotgun, and his target turned out to be the rear end of Cleveland's horse. So the animal reared up and threw Cleveland to the ground, but one of his partners grabbed him and threw him on the back with him, and they took off. So their plans, actually perfected over weeks in jail, included having fresh horses down the roadways, and then they were going to go on to Mexico, and from Mexico they figured that they could strike again and rob other trains or whatever. So, now, it might have been all pretty good except for the quick thinking of a citizen by the name of J.C. Jackson. Now, J.C. had been in the crowd outside watching, and when the gang made their escape. Well, Jackson, thinking pretty smartly, he cut the harness from a horse attached to a wagon, and he jumped on this horse bareback and raced after the escaping prisoners. But he hung back just far enough to not be in pistol range, but the posse was able to follow his tracks and follow him, who was following the gang.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, coming into pistol range, the 2 groups of riders started exchanging shots until one of the posse guy hit Chavez in the head, killed him, so now they're down to 5.
Uh-oh.
Now, the remaining 5 escapees dismounted and took cover in brushy canyons, and this is where you could imagine a TV show being filmed right here, because for about an hour the battle raged on just like a Western movie. I mean, the men moved back and forth behind trees, behind brush, and they would shoot at each other and back and forth, and anyway, luck was pretty much with the posse, because not one of them had sustained an injury. But the outlaws, it was a little different. Chavez, he got shot in the head, so he was dead.
Mm-hmm.
And Cleveland, he was dead. Now, Mitch Lee, the other guy, he was severely wounded, enough that he couldn't do much. Now, Taggart, one of the other guys, he called out from his hiding place, and he said, hey, I'm done. So Deputy Hall said, well, okay, throw up your hands and walk out here. Well, Taggart's move set the example for one of the other guys, Spencer, and he joined him with hands in the air. And Mitch Lee, he was wounded, so his only choice was to surrender. So the only guy left was the leader, Kit Joy.
Oh, boy.
Okay, so we got everybody, either 2 dead, the 3 surrendered, and Kit Joy just out there still. Well, the posse combed the gullies. They couldn't find anything of Kit Joy. Then all of a sudden, a shot rang out, and one of the posse guys, unfortunately, father of 6 children, fell to the ground dead. And the other men took cover, and they searched again. They still couldn't find this guy. So, well, the outlaw was free for a little while, but his last shot would kind of bring down the wrath of the posse people on his buddies. And back then, vengeance was pretty swift, and within minutes, Taggart and Mitch Lee were hanging by the neck. So they were done.
Mm-hmm.
So now only the leader, Kid Joy, was still at large, and I see we're running out of time, but I'm about to the end here. So anyway, his second go at freedom was proven to be pretty short-lived. Within a week of the jailbreak, he was recaptured. Seems like there was a gentleman spotted the fugitive, took aim with a rifle, shot him, shattered his left leg right below the knee. Well, Kit was jailed and his leg was amputated, but he recovered pretty nicely. And after he got to feeling better, he hobbled into court on one leg and a crutch. And he said, "I'm not guilty." He says, "I didn't do anything." He says, "I'm innocent." Well, it seems he had an alibi, a witness to his whereabouts during the time of the robbery. Well, this guy obviously was lying, and the jury and the judge obviously knew that he was lying because they had too many witnesses that knew that he had been there. So after 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict of guilty of murder in the second degree, and they sentenced him to life in prison in the penitentiary. Now, this is what I find odd. Just 15 months after his conviction, he was released from the penitentiary.
Wait a minute. I thought you said life in prison.
That's what they gave him. Like I said, this is what is confusing to me.
Mm-hmm. So here's a guy with one leg on crutches going to the state penitentiary for life, and he gets out a little bit more than a year later.
Yeah, 15 months. Released. So then he goes to Arizona, makes his home in Arizona, and there the enterprising fellow makes his living manufacturing and selling illegal moonshine.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, everybody's got to make a living.
Well, he was an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And so he ended his days peacefully in 1928 when he died down there in Arizona.
I thought you were going to come out and tell us that with the last name of Joy, that he, with one foot, he developed the Foot Joy Company.
You know, maybe he did, because that one foot probably got a lot of stress.
Oh, my goodness sakes. And he ended up making moonshine and died in Arizona.
Yeah, lived happily ever after, so to speak.
Well, if you're sipping on moonshine every day, you think you're going to have a frown on your face?
Well, heavens no. I mean, I'm sure he had to test it.
Now, I had never heard of that guy or his gang before, but interesting story.
Yeah, like I say, there's so many stories out there that never made anything. They were never famous or, never made the headlines really that anybody has ever heard of. So.
Did we have a lot of, at one time, Dr. History, Southern Idaho, let's say from Pocatello to Boise, did Idaho have the presence of the train robbers and the bank robbers and the shoot-'em-up bang-bang crooks like other states did, like Arizona, Texas, etc.?
When you get up into like Virginia City, Nevada City up there in Montana, they had some things happen there, and then there was, coming down from Virginia City down to Salt Lake, there were some holdups along that area, along the Portneuf. In fact, we talked about one here a few weeks ago, the holdup along the Portneuf. But right down through here, along the Snake River, there were Indian battles and a few things that happened. But I haven't run across an actual like a train holdup or anything like that.
Why don't we, one thing that I've had people ask about is, could you do a story about Massacre Rocks? I know you did it already on this program a long time ago, but about Massacre Rocks and the Indian attack on the wagon trains going through that area. I've had many, many people ask for a repeat on that.
Okay, you betcha.
All right.
Got that all ready to go. That wouldn't be too hard to do at all.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, this man is just a really nice person, and that's Dr. Ken Turner, better known as Dr. History. And again, I want to say thank you for your hospitality and the maple bars with bacon, and just God bless you. And thanks for listening to Dr. History, brought to you by the new CSI Sage Truck Driving School in Burley. Call Lucky Bourne at 878-5802. Doc, we'll look forward to next week.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, sir.
My daughter went to a rodeo down in Utah, and she sat there for about a half an hour, couldn't figure out what was wrong, what was missing. Then she realized it was you.
That I was at the rodeo in Utah?
No, you were missing. You weren't the announcer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's just not the same without you announcing and going back and forth with Munsey and
Well, that's extremely kind of you, and I appreciate your kind remarks as always. And you're a blessing, and your knowledge of all the historical events and happenings is a pleasure on this program. Thank you very much. Now, get back to work as a real-life chiropractor.
All right, you have a good day, Zeb.
Thank you, sir. God bless you. Thank you. What a nice man. Dr. History, better known as Dr. Ken Turner. I appreciate him very much. Let's see, what else have I got to do here? Oh, real quick, I got to tell you about Sportsman's Warehouse at 1940 Bridgeview Boulevard in Twin Falls with my buddy Reese Widmeyer. Oh, they've got it all. Hunting, fishing, camping, backpacking, all your shooting equipment. The right equipment, the quality gear for what you're looking for. Only the top quality products for the serious outdoor enthusiast at Sportsman's Warehouse. That's right, the great indoors for those who love the great outdoors. Sportsman's Warehouse in Twin Falls. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Don't go away.
And now back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Oh, don't forget the big Twin Falls County Fair and Rodeo is coming up August 28th through September 2nd. The Twin Falls County Fair and the Magic Valley Stampede. And this year, live in concert at the Twin Falls County Fair, they're going to have Craig Morgan. Oh, does he put on a concert. It's going to be absolutely fantabulous. It's going to be Sunday, September 1st at 7:30 p.m. right there at the rodeo grounds. Tickets are on sale now with prices at $20 reserve grandstand, $17 general admission, and believe me, it is going to be a dandy. Don't miss it, the Twin Falls County Fair and Magic Valley Stampede, August 28th through September 2nd, and the entertainment at the concert, Craig Morgan. Get your tickets now. Ladies and gentlemen, this next man that's going to be on our program has been on my show many, many, many times, and I have the utmost respect for his knowledge about what's going on in education across the United States, and I'd like to say good morning to Kyle Olson with EAGnews.org. Good morning, Kyle. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
You know, Kyle, when I sat there the other day and I had a person call me after my radio program and said, basically, why are you so opposed to Common Core education? And then the very next minute, my wife hands me a daily caller sheet that was written by Eric Owens, and it said the Obama math under New Common Core, 3 times 4 equals 11, and that kind of summed it up right there. What have we got to worry about with Common Core coming in and infiltrating our school systems?
Well, that example specifically is that what Common Core is doing is it's putting emphasis on the procedure of how kids are getting to an answer, not necessarily the answer itself. And so that specific example that he was referencing came from a school district, I think in Iowa, where the school district said, you know, they may come up with the wrong answer, but as long as they can explain how they got to that answer, then that would be okay. And to me, that really kind of summarizes the whole problem here, where they're putting a bigger emphasis on the procedure versus the actual answer. And to me, what it does is it's taking away. They want to get away from this idea that, you know, there are yes and no answers. There are right answers and there are wrong answers. They want to get away from that, and they want to make things more relative. And that sort of thing. And I think that's a big concern with what we're seeing with Common Core.
Yeah, but you know, I'm sitting here, and I'm probably making a little bit light of this situation, but it's not funny at all. Here you have a man that majors in mathematics with this kind of an attitude, this kind of a philosophy, and he goes to work for the NASA Space Administration, and when he goes to figuring where the shuttle's going to land, he's only off 1,000 miles, and it lands in the Indian Ocean. I mean, that, with his figures, that's what could happen with Common Core.
Sure, but at least if he can explain how he got to that answer, then it doesn't really matter that the shuttle landed in the Indian Ocean. To me, that I think is the ideology, or that's the methodology that's going on here. I think another issue is that we've seen the federal government really promote Common Core, both in their statements, in terms of allowing school districts and states to get away from some of George Bush's reforms. They've incentivized it with stimulus money,
and that sort of thing. And so I and a lot of people are saying, we should not be having more federal involvement in education. Education should be a state and local issue. And yet the federal government has just been, going light speed in promoting Common Core and making sure that states are adopting it and implementing it. And so, to me, seeing the amount, the expansion of federal government authority in education is disturbing. And states should be doing what they can to reverse it.
Kyle, isn't the name itself throwing red flags up in the air? The name Common Core, when you think common, it's just an everyday thing, it's all the same, don't worry about it, it's all blasé. Doesn't that tell you that it's something to be worried about as far as not really noting and promoting exceptionalism?
Sure, and so much so that they're actually trying to get away from that name. Arne Duncan has tried to downplay the common part and focus more on the core part. And but see, what they say is that the reason we need to do this is because, kids in Idaho may not be getting the type of education as kids in Michigan. And so we need to have basically these national standards so we can properly assess how kids are doing in Idaho versus kids in Michigan. And they even go so far as to say if a kid moves from Idaho and moves to Michigan, they should be able to just pick up right where they left off. That's the whole purpose here. And I think anybody with common sense looks at that scenario and they say, that's a national education system. We may still have states, we may still have state superintendents, and we may still have school boards and legislatures, deciding where the money's going and what type of textbooks to buy and all of that stuff. But ultimately, we have a national education system, and that's something we've never seen before in America. But I think that's the direction that states like Idaho and others are going.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now I want you to close your eyes and think about this for just a second and give me an answer. All of a sudden, I have the power to reappoint Arne Duncan to Secretary of Trash Compaction, and you're going to become the new Secretary of Education. What changes would you make away from Common Core?
Sure. Well, you asked me that before, and my answer is still the same. The first thing I would do is I would fire myself, and then I would return as much power back to the states and local communities as possible. I mean, just a kind of a good glimpse, I think, into the thinking of Arne Duncan. And not to get too bureaucratic here, but basically what they've been doing is they've been going to states, the Federal Department of Education has been going to states, and they've been saying, if you will do the reforms that we want you to do, which Common Core is one of them, then we will give you a waiver, or we will ignore the reforms that George Bush put in place. Now, there are some states like California that they don't want to do that for whatever reason. And so now what Arne Duncan is doing is he's bypassing the state and he's going directly to school districts. And so what's happening is now you have got this direct accountability between the federal government and the local school district. And when that happens, you're cutting the state out, and you, like I said, you have a national education system. And so then at that point, you have bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., deciding what is best in the best interest of your students, your taxpayers, your parents, your school employees. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, you've got bureaucrats making those recommendations, making those decisions, and so that, I think, is the direction that we're heading.
One other subject I wanted to talk to you about this morning, and I was reading about the First Lady's food overhaul designed to change American culture. Let me ask you this. Now, I'm 65 years old, and you're quite a bit younger than that, but I can remember at 9:25 in the morning at high school, we heard the bell ring, and we all ran down to the snack bar. We had maybe a bag of Fritos. We might have had an ice cream bar, whatever. And out of my graduating class of 95 kids or whatever it was in high school, there was only two people that would be considered to be obese. Why do we need to change American culture, and is it as bad as they promote it to be with our food system?
No, I don't think it is. I think the overhaul that is going on right now, and kids will be seeing that very soon, either this week or next, or maybe the following week, they're going to be seeing those changes. And, to me, there's two ways to have kids slim down if you think that's a problem. The first way is to increase activity, so gym class, athletics, promoting kids, going outside after the school day versus sitting inside and playing video games. Or the second way is to starve them and give them food that either is so small that it doesn't sustain them, or it's food that they just simply don't want to eat. And so I think what's happening actually is the latter. And so because you look at the stories coming out from school districts around the country, and in fact the Government Accountability Office did a report on this and identified the numerous problems created by the overhaul, and they identified huge amounts of food waste. School districts are losing money because sales are down because kids don't want to buy the food. Teachers are reporting in the latter part of the day kids are hungry, and so they're becoming distracted and they're losing focus. Athletic coaches are saying kids are coming to practice hungry, and so all of these problems have been created, but they're not doing anything about it. In fact, they're doubling down on this strategy, and so I guess their strategy is to starve the children versus actually fixing the problem and promoting being active and doing those sorts of things.
This is a comment that really scared me when I was reading about Sally Rathke, the Director of Food Services for Ohio's Delaware City School District. She said, quote, "We are changing the culture in America right now. We are trying to change our behavior and our taste patterns. It won't happen overnight. It takes time." My question to you, Kyle, is, what's wrong with our behavior? What's wrong with our taste patterns? What's wrong with our food that we need to have these people, these elitists, come in and tell us that they've got to change it?
Sure. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But the people, the people in those positions of power, the people in Washington, D.C., they think that they know how to run your life better than you do. And to me, that's what this comes down to. Otherwise, why would you have people talking in those sorts of terms that we're changing the culture in America? Well, that's not up to school employees. That's not up to bureaucrats. That's up to the individual and the family about how they want to live their lives. And further on, she said she hopes what they are doing in the schools will influence what is happening at home. And again, that's not their role. If parents want a healthy lunch, then they can figure that out. Clearly, we don't want kids eating junk food all day. I don't think anybody wants that. But at the same time, the reforms that they're implementing are not working, and they don't really seem to be interested in doing anything about that, except just doubling down and essentially saying, well, it's just going to take time to change the culture. And so to me, that is what is happening in this situation. Is you've got people who think they know better, and they are going to try and implement that on our students and families.
A lot of times when I didn't take the hot lunch program at school, Kyle, I used to take my mother's lovely lunches to school, and I mean that in all sincerity. My mom really put a lot of heart and soul into our lunches, whether it might have been boiled ham with some cheese, whether it was an apple or an orange, or maybe a couple of cookies, and that was great. But now there seems to be a condemnation of that type of thing. Do you see in the near future where schools and regulatory authorities will ban bagged lunches even coming onto the school grounds?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's the next step, because if you read that story and what that particular lunch lady said was, she believes basically there's this misconception about the healthiness of school lunches. And she just was basically horrified at the fact that a kid would bring a bologna sandwich and a bag of chips or some cookies from home. And so I think that will be the next step. They will say, no, what the parent is packing, we can't monitor that. It's most likely unhealthy. We are providing something that we believe is healthy and is better for the students, and therefore we will ban home-packed lunches. We've seen that in some school districts, and I think that will spread.
But there again, though, Kyle, it can't happen and it shouldn't happen if the parents would stand up and be unified in their voice in the various school districts and say, no, enough is enough. You're always going to have certain students in every school that need special diets that have to be conformed to, whether it's through diabetes or whatever. And for the school to say a one-size-fits-all, you will eat this, you will not eat anything else, I think parents should be outraged and stomp their feet on the floor and say no.
Sure. And I think that's happening to some degree. But, of course, these bureaucracies are so difficult to deal with. I mean, there's a story in Michigan, not to get off track with the lunches, but there's a story in Michigan that we've been covering. Glenn Beck just picked it up, where there is a teacher molested a student. He admitted to it. He was sentenced to prison. At his sentencing hearing, 7 teachers wrote letters on that teacher's behalf asking for leniency. And then the community was so outraged they wanted those teachers fired. And just last night there was a school board meeting where the school board said, no, we fear lawsuits that would come from that, and so we are going to keep these teachers. And so you could have a clean-cut case like that, and the system will still screw over the parents and the families.
Mike,
so, I mean, I think parents should do everything they can in their power to try and change the system. That's the only way I think it will change, but that is a very difficult thing to do.
You are the most knowledgeable person I know in regards to everything that's going on with education. And I got to give you kudos. Every time you're on my program or I see you on Hannity or O'Reilly or whatever you're on, you really know your A, B's, and C's on this subject. But honestly, with breakfast in the morning and then lunch and then the late afternoon school programs and even supper for these kids, taking away all the parental responsibility and just becoming wards of the state and of the school district, I'm scared for the future of our kids in this country through the school systems.
Yeah, I mean, there's two parts to this. One, you've got overzealous bureaucrats who are saying we're going to do all these things for children, and then you've got parents who see that as a bonus. That I don't have to give my kid lunch anymore or breakfast, and those sorts of things. And to me, what it's doing is parents are giving those responsibilities away, and the bureaucrats are gleefully taking them. And so, to me, it's going to come down to parents saying, no, that's my responsibility. I mean, my wife and I, we have young kids in school. Their school provides breakfast, and we say, no, that's something that we do because we're parents, that's our responsibility. Our kids are not going to do that at school. And it's not because, we don't want the food or anything like that. It's that's our responsibility, not the school's responsibility.
Absolutely.
And I think more parents need to do that.
Absolutely. Let me ask you one final thought here, Kyle. And again, I'm very wary of what the government tells me. I take everything with a grain of salt and have kind of the Missouri State slogan, show me. But this obesity trend, I was watching the other day a bunch of kids playing on a playground, and I didn't see any obese children. I didn't see somebody just being able to just barely get around or walk over to the swing and try to get on. I don't believe in the government charts and statistics that say that our, 1 in 3 or 1 out of 2 are obese in the classroom. I don't believe in this. Why is this such a big deal for this administration, more so than any other administration, to go after obesity when I don't think it's as prevalent as they say it is?
Well, to me, I think it's kind of the global warming of schools. And so, in other words, if it turns out that the science doesn't really show that there's global warming, well, then they'll just change the name to climate change. And if there's an outbreak of tornadoes, well, that's because of climate change. Or if we're having in Michigan here, where I live, August has been one of the coolest Augusts in ever. I mean, I think where I live, we haven't had a day over 80, barely. And that's because of climate change. And so it's like what they do is they use that sort of issue as the reason for change. And so they may not be completely accurate, but it's a moving definition is basically what I'm trying to say. And so to me, what it comes down to is the federal government saying, we know better than your local community. about what the standards should be, about what should be taught in the classroom, about what the kids should be eating, how to run your class, run your school, and all of those sorts of things. It's power-hungry people in Washington, D.C., saying they know what's best, and if you're going to take our money, if you're going to be in America, then you're going to do what we say.
You know what scares me, and I see this as kind of a socialistic, communistic attitude and approach. Everybody has a personal chemistry and body makeup. Everybody is different. Everybody's DNA is different. And for me, I'm a big guy. I'm 6 foot and I weigh about 215, 220. But you might be 6 foot and weigh 165 pounds. Everybody is different in the way that God created us. But they, the government bureaucrats, are trying to make a one-size-fits-all government. And this, to me, is very sinister.
Right. And so you could have, a 200-pound lineman for the football team, and you could have a 100-pound cheerleader, but in the eyes of these lunch standards, they are supposed to be fed exactly the same. I mean, that's how ridiculous this is. But see, that's what happens when you've got people sitting in Washington, D.C. coming up with these things. They're not practical. They're not working. They've created all of these problems that we talked about earlier, but they don't care. They just double down and they say, no, you've got to fill out the forms. You have to give the food to the kid. What happens after that? Who cares? As long as you give the food you put the food on the plate, the kid picks up the plate and walks away. They may walk 5 feet and throw it in the garbage can, but as long as the school did that, they can fill out the form, they can send it to the Obama administration, they can check off on it, and everybody's happy. It may not be working, but that doesn't matter. And so that is the sort of policy that we've been seeing implemented, and that's why, to bring this full circle, why a national education system will not work.
Absolutely.
Because you can't, my community in Michigan is different from your community in Idaho.
That's right.
Which is different from, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We're different. We have different values. We have different perspectives on, different community makeups, those sorts of things. And our schools should be reflective of those communities, not what people in Washington, D.C. are dictating what they should look like.
Absolutely. I've got time for one call, and then I've only got 3 minutes left. Caller, real fast. Go.
Hi. I had a teacher that relocated to our area that said that Common Core originated through the states, and that they were just basically trying to get all the states in line so that when a kid transferred from one state to the other, they wouldn't be lost. But where did it originate? And I want to hang up and listen.
All right, thank you. Kyle, quickly, if you would.
Sure. It originated with the National Governors Association, so I suppose in a technical sense it started at the state level, but really it was a national group that started this. And they happen to own the copyright of Common Core. A lot of people don't know that. And so the National Governors Association and a state superintendent's group have a lot to gain by these states doing this. But she's exactly right. You should be able to go state to state and not get lost. And what that says to me is that school districts will be teaching the same thing at the same time. That's a national education system. They don't like to talk like that. They don't like to, admit that, but that's what it is.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the best, and that's Kyle Olson with EAGnews.org. Thank you, Kyle, once again for being a regular on this program. God's blessings to you, and I'll look forward to the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kyle Olson, very, very knowledgeable, talking about Common Core and the food or lack of in our school lunchrooms. And, boy, that makes me mad. I just don't believe in this obesity campaign. I don't believe that we're going to hell in a handbasket, an obese handbasket, if you will. And neither does he. Neither does he. It's just more government control. Time quickly for Michael Rogers' weather update. I'll be right back.
Hey, everybody. Michael Rogers on MichaelRogersWeather.com. No change as far as the weather for today and tomorrow, but you can kind of circle for Thursday. First time we're going to see a bona fide thunderstorm in the forecast. Otherwise, sunny and hot today, 92 for the high, 66 for the overnight low, more the same for tomorrow, and then we can get some rain action when we get to Thursday. So enjoy the weather. It is the only weather you've got.
Thanks, Michael, and don't forget to our friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers with 7 great locations serving you. That key word in that phrase, serving, and that's exactly what it is. Great service to you, your automobiles, with the best of tires for your cars, your pickups, your SUVs, horse trailers, boat trailers, whatever you need tires for, they've got them, and all the different tread designs for the type of driving that you do. And they have the free peace of mind tire protection. If your tire is damaged beyond repair, they'll replace it at its value. Our workmanship is guaranteed for the life of your tires, and they offer free pre-trip safety checks. All of this and more at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Stop in and see Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike in Buell, Mike in Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Lane in Rupert, John on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Gina, real quick, I want you to get on the mic. Are you there?
No, I ran away.
I figured you might. Woo! There's that salty attitude again. No, I have a question, seriously. And I'm going to stand behind my statement earlier, and I'm not going to weaken on this. I don't believe in the obesity campaign from Michelle Obama. Now, thinking of what I just said, and you with Kennedy in school, how many boys or girls in his class can you honestly consider to be obese?
None.
That's my point.
None. Not one. I seriously, not one. I don't even think that there's an obese child in this school.
They are coming out, and I think I'm glad to ask you this because you're a mom that is every day with your child, and you see the other children. I am not buying into this government saying that we're going to hell in a handbasket of obesity, and that what are the ratios they're giving? I think it's like 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3 or whatever, 2 out of 4. They're saying are so obese they can't function. I'm not buying this.
I don't buy that as well. A lot of it has to do with, what the parents are doing at home, how active they are with their kids, this, that, and the other. But I can honestly say, and I go to my son's school every day when it's in session, not one child there would I can even consider even slightly overweight.
And I'm looking at my grandsons. I've got 4 grandsons, another one on the way, and all 4 grandsons are so physically fit and so absolutely ripping and raring to go. I'm not buying into these statistics, which I think are nothing more than government control.
I completely agree, and this is what I'm concerned of with these new policies and nutrition regulations and this, that, and the other. Our kids aren't being fed enough.
That's right. They're not getting enough nutrition during the day to sit there and absorb the knowledge they need.
Nope, they have growing little bodies, they have high metabolisms, and once they burn through that protein and those sugars and everything that they ate, wow, their brain power goes out the window. It happens to me every day, and I know that's exactly what happens to these kids at school. They're not feeding them enough.
Amen. I am really glad to hear you say that because I'm not buying into this government bureaucracy of lies and false statements, and especially Michelle Obama last Sunday in the Parade magazine coming out as she is the food queen and savior for our kids. That's a bunch of bogus baloney.
Food queen, what? Eating at McDonald's and Jack in the Box?
Yeah, and going to Martha's Vineyard and having a triple cheeseburger. That's okay for her.
We've got Al on the phone real quick.
Real quick, Al. I've only got 30 seconds. Fast.
I'm not over obese. I'm pleasingly plump and more to love. Have a good day.
Oh, what a way to end the program. God bless everybody. See you tomorrow morning at 8:06. The way things were, the way things ought to be. Have a great day. Thank you.